Homeless boy helps a stranger who fainted and discovers it was the mayor. Tommy rushed toward the man collapsed in the middle of the square, his bare feet pounding against the cold morning concrete. The sun was just rising when he saw the well-dressed man in a dark suit fall near the empty benches, and now he was shouting for help with all the strength his 8-year-old lungs could muster. "Help! Help! There's a man here who needs help!" the boy yelled, his tattered clothes fluttering as he desperately waved at the few passers-by, hurrying through Central Square in Bridgeport. Most people just glanced from a distance and kept walking, probably thinking it was just another street problem they didn't want to get involved in. Tommy knew that reaction well. In the 2 years he'd lived on the city streets, he'd learned. That indifference was the most common response from people when they saw someone like him. But this time was different. It wasn't him who needed help. It was that well-dressed man lying there, motionless, his face pale, and his breathing faint. "Please, someone call an ambulance!" he shouted again, kneeling beside the stranger. The man looked to be in his early 40s, with graying hair at his temples, and wore a high-quality grey suit that contrasted sharply with Tommy's torn and dirty clothes. His hands were cold, but there was still a weak pulse in his wrist. Tommy had learned some basic first aid when he lived at the shelter, before running away 2 years ago. He vaguely remembered Sister Grace's advice not to move an unconscious person, but to keep their airways clear. "Sir? Sir? Can you hear me?" Tommy whispered, leaning his ear close to the man's mouth to check his breathing. It was uneven, but it was there. Tommy looked around once more, desperate for help that wasn't coming. People kept walking by as if nothing was happening. Some even crossed the street to avoid the scene. Then, Tommy spotted a woman in her 50s approaching. She wore a floral apron and carried a grocery bag. Her eyes showed genuine concern as she walked toward them. "What happened here, son?" the woman asked, kneeling on the other side of the unconscious man. "I saw him fall, ma'am. He was walking near the benches and suddenly collapsed. It's been about 10 minutes and no one stops to help," Tommy explained, his voice shaky with nerves and exhaustion from shouting. "My name is Martha. I work at the bakery on the corner. I'll call 911 right now," she said, pulling an old cell phone from her bag. "What's your name, dear?" "Tommy," the boy answered, not taking his eyes off the unconscious man. Martha dialed and explained the situation to the 911 operator, giving the exact location of the square and a description of the victim's condition. As they waited, she and Tommy stayed by the man's side, Martha periodically checking his pulse while Tommy stayed alert for any changes. "You were very brave to help, Tommy. Most kids would have been too scared and run away," Martha remarked, watching how the boy remained vigilant and concerned. "On the streets, you learn to help when you can because sometimes it's you who needs help," Tommy replied with a maturity that impressed Martha. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe. Then to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now continuing. The ambulance siren echoed through the quiet Bridgeport morning. Tommy felt immense relief as the paramedics rushed toward them with medical equipment. Finally, professional help had arrived. "What do we have here?" asked the taller paramedic, a guy around 30 with short hair and a firm voice. "We found him passed out about 20 minutes ago. The boy here was the one who saw him fall and called for help," explained Martha, stepping aside to give the professionals space. Tommy watched closely as the paramedics checked the man's vitals, hooked up monitors, and exchanged technical questions. He didn't understand all the medical terms, but he could tell by their expressions that the situation was serious. "Very low blood pressure, irregular pulse. Looks like severe hypoglycemia or something cardiac. Let's get him to the hospital immediately," the paramedic told his partner. As they prepared the man for transport, Tommy stood there, watching. Something inside him couldn't just walk away. Maybe it was because he knew what it felt like to be alone and helpless when something bad happened. "Kid, what's your name again?" asked the younger paramedic while helping load the man onto the stretcher. "Tommy," he replied, his small hands nervously clasped in front of him. "Tommy, do you have somewhere to stay? Any family around here?" the paramedic continued, noticing his worn-out clothes and the look of someone who lived on the streets. Tommy hesitated before answering. That question always made him uncomfortable because the answers usually led to more questions. he'd rather not answer. "I get by around here," he finally said, avoiding details. Martha, who had witnessed the whole conversation, approached Tommy with a motherly look he recognized immediately. It was the same look Sister Grace used to have, full of concern and a desire to help. "Tommy, do you eat every day? Have somewhere to sleep at night?" Martha asked gently. "Sometimes yes, sometimes no. But I manage, Mrs. Anderson." "Don't worry about me," Tommy replied, trying to sound more confident than he felt. The ambulance drove off with the unconscious man, and Tommy stood there in the square with Martha, watching the vehicle disappear into the morning traffic. A strange emptiness settled in his chest, as if he'd lost something important, though he didn't even know what. "Tommy, would you like to come with me to the bakery? I can give you some warm bread and milk," Martha offered, already guessing the boy probably hadn't had breakfast. Tommy looked at her with instinctive wariness. 2 years on the streets had taught him that seemingly generous offers sometimes came with conditions or expectations he wasn't willing to accept. But there was something genuine about Martha's manner that made him hesitate to refuse. "It's just breakfast, Tommy. No strings attached. You helped me take care of that. Man, today it's the least I can do," Martha insisted, sensing his hesitation. After a few seconds of thought, Tommy accepted the invitation. His stomach had been growling for hours, and the offer of hot food was hard to turn down. Besides, something in him wanted to know what had happened to the man they'd helped. Martha's bakery was just 2 blocks from the square, on a busy downtown corner. It was a small but cozy place, the smell of fresh bread filling the air from the doorway. Tommy had never been inside before, though he'd passed by many times. "Sit at the corner table, Tommy. I'll get your coffee," Martha said, pointing to a small formica table near the window. Tommy settled into the plastic chair, his eyes scanning the room. It was a simple place, but clean and tidy. There were all kinds of bread in the glass display cases, and the bustle of morning customers created a warm atmosphere he wasn't used to experiencing. Martha returned with a tray holding a glass of warm milk, 2 still warm sugar rolls, and a piece of cheese. To Tommy, that meal felt like a feast. "Thank you, Mrs. Anderson," Tommy said sincerely, before starting to eat with the appetite of someone who didn't know when their next meal would come. "Oh, you're welcome, dear. Tell me something. Did you know that man who fainted in the square?" Martha asked, sitting in the chair beside him. "No, I'd never seen him before. I just saw him fall and ran to help," Tommy answered between bites of bread. "How strange. He was alone in the square at this hour. Well-dressed people like that usually don't walk around there so early in the morning," Martha remarked thoughtfully. Tommy stopped chewing for a moment, considering her observation. It was true, there was something unusual about the situation. Central Square wasn't a place where men in suits usually went in the early morning, especially alone. "Maybe he was on his way to work and got sick," Tommy suggested. "Could be, or maybe he was coming back from somewhere. Either way, what matters is you helped him when he needed it. That says a lot about your character, Tommy," Martha said with a warm smile. As Tommy finished his breakfast, Martha watched the boy with growing interest. There was something special about him, a mix of vulnerability and strength that touched her motherly heart. She herself had lost a child years ago and had never been able to have others, which made her naturally drawn to helping children in difficult situations. "Tommy, can I ask you something?" Martha said, after a few moments of silence. "Sure," Tommy replied, wiping crumbs from his face with the back of his hand. "How long have you been living on the streets?" Tommy froze for a few seconds, his eyes fixed on the empty milk glass. That question always brought back memories he'd rather keep buried, but there was something in Martha's voice that made him feel he could trust her. 2 years, he finally answered, his voice quieter than before. "And do you have any family? Parents, siblings, anyone?" Martha continued gently. "My mum. She had to leave town when I was 6. She left me at the nuns' shelter. Said she'd come back for me once she got settled in a bigger city," Tommy explained, his words heavy with a sadness he tried to hide. "And she never came back." "No. I waited 2 years at the shelter. Sister Grace was really kind to me, but I kept thinking that if my mum came back and I wasn't there, she'd leave again. So I ran away from the shelter to stay in the city so she could find me if she ever returned, Tommy said, his voice trembling. Martha's heart ached as she listened to the boy's story. She knew Sister Grace by sight and was aware that the shelter had indeed lost some children who'd run away over the years. She never imagined she'd find one of them in her bakery. "Tommy, have you ever thought about going back to the shelter? I'm sure Sister Grace would be happy to take you in again," Martha suggested carefully. "I've thought about it, but what if my mum comes looking for me and I'm not on the streets? How will she find me?" Tommy replied with the heartbreaking logic of a child. Just then, the bakery phone rang, interrupting their conversation. Martha answered, and Tommy could only catch bits of it, but he gathered it had something to do with the man they'd helped in the square. "That was my friend Nancy, who works at the hospital front desk. She called to say the man we helped is doing fine. He woke up and is out of danger," Martha said after hanging up. Tommy felt immense relief knowing his help had made a difference. It was comforting to hear the stranger was safe. "That's great." "What did she say he had?" asked Tommy with genuine interest. According to her, it was a very severe drop in blood pressure and sugar. He had been fasting for many hours and his body couldn't take it. "But he's recovering well now," explained Martha. "Did he ask about who helped him?" Tommy wanted to know, curiosity shining in his eyes. Nancy said, "Yes, that he asked several times about the child who found him. It seems he wants to meet you to thank you in person," replied Martha, watching the boy's reaction. Tommy was surprised by this information. In his 2 years living on the streets, people rarely showed any interest in thanking him for anything. Most treated him as invisible, or worse, as a nuisance. "Do you really think he wants to see me?" Tommy asked, a mix of hope and suspicion in his voice. "It seems so. Nancy said he insisted on knowing who had helped him. Do you want me to find out more details?" Martha offered. Tommy hesitated. Part of him was curious to learn more about the man he had helped, but another part felt nervous. What if the man asked questions about his life? What if he tried to force him back into the shelter? Those possibilities made him anxious. "I don't know. Maybe it's better to leave it as it is." "He's okay, that's what matters," Tommy said, trying to sound indifferent. Martha noticed the boy's hesitation and decided not to push. She knew street kids developed a natural distrust of adults, and pressuring Tommy might make him pull away. "That's fine, Tommy. But if you change your mind, you can find me here, at the bakery. I need to get back to work now, but you're welcome to stay a little longer if you'd like," Martha said, standing up to attend to other customers who had arrived. Tommy stayed a few more minutes in the bakery, watching the activity and thinking about the morning's events. There was something about the whole situation that intrigued him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. When he finally decided to leave, he thanked Martha again for the food and kindness. She gave him 2 more loaves to take with him and said he would always be welcome at the bakery. Tommy spent the rest of the day wandering the familiar streets of downtown Bridgeport, but his mind kept drifting back to the man he had helped. There was something puzzling about that encounter, a feeling that it wasn't just a random coincidence. In the afternoon, while searching for empty bottles to sell for spare change, Tommy decided to pass by the square where it had all happened. He wasn't sure why, but he felt an inexplicable need to return to that spot. The square was livelier, now with children playing on the swings and adults resting on the benches. Tommy sat in the same spot where he had found the unconscious man and watched the activity around him. That's when he saw an elegant woman, about 40 years old, walking through the square and looking around as if searching for someone. She wore expensive business clothes and carried a leather purse that Tommy knew cost more than he could save in months. The woman approached the bench where Tommy was sitting and hesitated for a few seconds before speaking. "Excuse me, are you Tommy?" she asked in a polite but tense voice. Tommy looked at her in surprise. How did this woman know his name? He didn't recognize her and was sure he had never seen her before. "I am... Why?" he replied cautiously, ready to run if needed. "My name is Pamela. I'm the secretary of the man you helped this morning. He asked me to look for you," the woman explained, sitting on the bench beside Tommy. "Is he okay?" Tommy asked, genuine concern showing in his voice. "Yes, thanks to you. He's in the hospital for observation but out of danger, and he's very eager to meet you and thank you in person," said Pamela with a smile that didn't seem entirely natural. Tommy studied the woman's face for a few seconds. There was something in her expression that didn't match her kind words. Her eyes seemed to be sizing him up in a way that made him uncomfortable. "Did he say his name?" asked Tommy, testing whether the woman really knew the man he had helped. "Of course. Richard Taylor," Pamela replied promptly. Tommy nodded, though the name meant nothing to him. It didn't tell him who that man was or why a well-dressed secretary would be looking for a street kid. "Mr. Taylor would really like to see you. I can take you to the hospital now if you'd like," Pamela offered, her tone suggesting it was more of an expectation than an invitation. "I don't know. I'm not too fond of hospitals," Tommy admitted honestly. Hospitals reminded him of hard times, and the smell of medicine always made him feel sick. "It would just be a quick visit. Mr. Taylor wants to give you something as thanks for what you did," Pamela insisted. The mention of thanks made Tommy feel a mix of curiosity and suspicion. In his experience, when well-dressed adults wanted to thank street kids, there were usually other intentions involved. "What kind of thanks?" Tommy asked bluntly. "Well, he'll explain that in person, but I can tell you he was very impressed by your bravery and wants to repay you somehow," Pamela replied evasively. Tommy fell silent for a few minutes, weighing his options. Part of him was curious to learn more about the man he'd helped, but his survival instincts warned him to be cautious. "Can I think about it and give you an answer later?" he asked. Pamela hesitated, clearly expecting an immediate response. Her expression grew slightly impatient before she composed herself. "Of course, but don't take too long. Mr. Taylor will only be at the hospital until tomorrow morning. After that, it'll be harder to arrange a meeting," she said, standing up from the bench. "How do I find you if I decide to go?" Tommy asked. "I'll be here in the square tomorrow at 8 in the morning. If you show up, I'll take you to meet him," Pamela replied, handing Tommy a business card. "My number's there in case you need anything." Tommy took the card and watched Pamela walk away across the square. There was something about the whole situation that bothered him, but he couldn't quite put his finger on it. Maybe it was just his natural distrust, or maybe there really was something strange going on. He looked down at the card in his hands. Pamela Reed, Executive Assistant, was written in gold letters on an elegant white background. There was no mention of a company or Richard Taylor's specific position. As he walked back to the spot where he usually slept, Tommy tried to sort out his thoughts. On one hand, it made sense that someone would want to thank him for saving their life. On the other, there was something about Pamela's attitude that didn't sit right with him. He decided he'd talk to Martha the next day. She seemed genuinely concerned for his well-being and might help him decide whether or not to meet this Richard Taylor. That night, Tommy slept restlessly in the stairwell where he usually took shelter. His dreams were troubled by confused images of the unconscious man, the elegant woman, and unanswered questions echoing in his mind. By the time the sun rose the next morning, Tommy had already been awake for a while. He'd decided to go to Martha's bakery before making any decision about meeting Richard Taylor. The bakery was already bustling when Tommy arrived. Martha saw him through the window and waved with a warm smile, motioning for him to come in. "Good morning, Tommy. How did you sleep?" asked Martha, automatically pouring him a glass of milk and handing him a warm roll. "Not great. Mrs. Martha, I need to talk to you about something," Tommy said seriously. Martha immediately sensed something was troubling the boy. She finished helping the customer at the counter and sat down with Tommy at the same table as yesterday. "What is it, dear? Did something happen?" she asked with genuine concern. Tommy told her about meeting Pamela in the square, describing every detail of their conversation and expressing his doubts about the situation. Martha listened carefully, her expression growing more thoughtful. "And did you get any strange feelings from this woman?" Martha asked when Tommy finished recounting. "Yeah, she seemed, I don't know how to explain it, like she was playing a role, you know. Her words were kind, but her tone didn't match," Tommy explained, trying to put his intuition into words. Martha nodded, her maternal instincts also, warning her of potential problems. "Tommy, I'll give you some advice. If you decide to meet this man, don't go alone. And don't go anywhere that isn't public and crowded," she said firmly. "You think it could be dangerous?" Tommy asked, his worries validated by Martha's words. "I don't know, dear, but when it comes to children, especially children living on the streets, it's always better to be cautious. Sometimes People with bad intentions take advantage. A vulnerability, Martha explained gently. Tommy took in her advice, grateful to have someone who genuinely cared about his well-being. It was a strange but comforting feeling to have an adult offering guidance without trying to control him. "If I go, will you come with me?" Tommy asked timidly. "Of course, if you want to go, I'll be right there with you. But here's what we'll do. If you decide to go, we'll insist the meeting happens here at the bakery, somewhere familiar and safe," Martha suggested. Tommy considered the idea. It made sense. If this Richard Taylor was truly grateful, he wouldn't mind meeting in a public, safe place. If there were other intentions, this suggestion would reveal his true motives. "Okay, if I see Pamela today, I'll tell her the meeting should be here," Tommy decided. "Good, and I'll be here to support you no matter what happens," Martha assured him. At 8 in the morning, Tommy was waiting in Central Square for Pamela. Martha had temporarily closed the bakery and accompanied him, keeping a discreet distance but always keeping Tommy in sight. Pamela arrived right on time, but her expression visibly changed when she saw Tommy wasn't alone. She walked up to him with a forced smile, her eyes flickering between the boy and Martha. "Good morning, Tommy. I see you brought company," Pamela said, her tone trying to sound casual but revealing irritation. "This is Mrs. Martha. She helped me yesterday after we rescued your boss. She's coming with me to meet him," Tommy said firmly. "Oh, how interesting. But Tommy, Mr. Richard, prefers more private meetings. Maybe it'd be better if you came alone," Pamela suggested, her mask of kindness starting to slip. "Why can't he meet Mrs. Martha too? She helped me yesterday. It's almost like she helped him too," Tommy argued, testing Pamela's reaction. Martha stepped forward then, extending her hand to Pamela with a polite but firm smile. "Hello, I'm Martha. Tommy told me about the man you helped yesterday. How is he feeling?" Martha asked directly. It's fine. Thank you for asking," replied Pamela, clearly uncomfortable with Martha's presence. "That's good. You know Tommy is a very special boy, always willing to help others. We met yesterday, and since then I've been keeping a close eye on his well-being," Martha continued, making it clear that Tommy wasn't alone. Pamela forced another smile, but Tommy could see she was visibly annoyed by the direction of the conversation. "Well, if you insist on going together, we'll have to reschedule for another time. Mr. Taylor isn't feeling well today and can't have visitors," Pamela said quickly. "Yesterday you said he'd only be in the hospital until this morning," Tommy pointed out, noticing the contradiction. "Yes, but there was a last-minute complication. The doctors decided to keep him under observation for a few more days," Pamela explained, growing increasingly nervous. Martha and Tommy exchanged meaningful glances. Pamela's story was becoming less and less convincing. "I see. Well, when he's better and can have visitors, Tommy will be at my bakery. It's on the corner of Liberty Street and Broadway Avenue. You can find us there," Martha said, giving the information in a way that sounded more like a warning than an invitation. Pamela nodded, clearly eager to end the encounter as quickly as possible. "Of course, I'll let Mr. Taylor know. Excuse me, I have to go now," she said, hurrying away before they could ask anything else. Tommy and Martha watched Pamela disappear into the crowd in Central Square, both sensing that something was very wrong with the situation. "What do you think?" Tommy asked as they walked back to the bakery. "I think it's very strange, Tommy. First she insists you go alone, then she makes excuses when she realizes you're not helpless. Something doesn't sit right with me," Martha replied honestly. "I thought so too, and she knew my name yesterday but never asked how she found out where to meet me," Tommy added, his intuition proving correct. "Exactly. And another thing, if this Richard Taylor is really grateful, why doesn't he call the bakery or show up in person? Why send a middleman?" Martha questioned. Tommy felt a chill as he noticed all the inconsistencies in Pamela's story. Martha was right to be cautious, and he was grateful to have someone experienced guiding him. "Mrs. Martha, do you think the man I helped yesterday was really Richard Taylor?" Tommy asked as they entered the bakery. "Good question, Tommy. How about we call the hospital and check if there's actually a patient named Richard Taylor admitted there?" Martha suggested. She picked up the phone and called Bridgeport General Hospital. After a few minutes of speaking with different departments, Martha hung up with a troubled expression. "So, Tommy asked anxiously. Tommy, there's no... Richard Taylor admitted to the hospital. In fact, yesterday only one male patient matching the age we described was admitted, and his name isn't Richard Taylor, Martha revealed. Tommy felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath his feet. If the man he'd helped wasn't Richard Taylor, then who was he? And more importantly, who was Pamela, and what did she really want with him? Did you find out his real name? Tommy asked, his mind racing with unsettling possibilities. The receptionist couldn't give detailed information over the phone, but she said I could go in person as the one who helped him. Do you want to come with me? Martha offered. Tommy hesitated. Part of him wanted answers, but another part was afraid of what they might discover. What if there was something truly dangerous behind all this? Let's go. But we promised each other that if anything seems strange, we leave immediately, said Tommy, surprising himself with his own maturity. Martha smiled proudly at the boy. In just 2 days together, she could already see that Tommy was an exceptional child with sharp instincts and emotional intelligence rare for his age. Promise. We'll find out the truth, but safety always comes first, agreed Martha. An hour later, Martha and Tommy were at the reception desk of Bridgeport General Hospital. The employee who assisted them, a middle-aged woman named Nancy, immediately recognized the description they gave of the patient. Oh yes, the gentleman who was admitted yesterday morning with severe hypoglycemia. Are you the ones who helped him? Asked Nancy with interest. Yes, that's us. Tommy here was the one who found him passed out in Central Square and called for help, Martha explained. Nancy looked at Tommy with admiration. What a brave boy. The gentleman asked several times about who had helped him. He was very grateful, she said with a warm smile. How is he, and may I ask his name? Martha inquired carefully. Nancy hesitated for a few seconds, checking some papers on her desk. Well, considering you helped him, I think I can share some basic information. His name is William Parker Thompson. He's doing well and was discharged this morning, Nancy informed them. Tommy felt a mix of relief and confusion. William Parker Thompson, not Richard Taylor. So Pamela had lied about his name, but why? Nancy, can I ask you a strange question? Said Martha. Yesterday afternoon, a woman came looking for me, claiming to be the secretary of the man we helped. She said his name was Richard Taylor. Do you know of any secretary or assistant who came here? Nancy thought for a few seconds before answering. How odd. No secretary came here. In fact, Mr. Thompson didn't receive any female visitors. Only a younger man came by who introduced himself as his nephew, said Nancy, growing more intrigued. A nephew? What did he look like? Tommy asked quickly. Tall, thin young man around 30, dark hair, very well dressed. But he didn't stay long, just asked about his uncle's condition and whether anyone had inquired about him, Nancy described. Martha and Tommy exchanged alarmed glances. The story was getting more complicated and mysterious by the minute. Nancy, can you give us any more information about this William Parker? His job, address, anything that might help us understand the situation better? Martha asked. Well, I can't share detailed personal information, but I can say he holds an important position at City Hall. That's what I saw in his documents, Nancy revealed in a low voice. Tommy felt as though all the pieces of a puzzle were starting to come together, but forming a picture he still couldn't fully grasp. An important position at City Hall, Tommy repeated. Yes, but listen, if you'd like to speak with him personally, I can try to get you in touch. I'm sure he'd be happy to meet the people who saved him, Nancy offered. That would be wonderful, thank you, said Martha, though her mind raced with concerns about the whole situation. Nancy wrote down the number for Martha's bakery and promised to try contacting William Parker to arrange a proper meeting. When they left the hospital, Tommy was visibly shaken by all the revelations. Mrs. Anderson, why did that Pamela lie about his name, and who was that man who claimed to be his nephew? Tommy asked, his voice trembling with anxiety. I don't know, Tommy. But one thing is certain, there's something very strange going on, and we need to be even more careful, replied Martha, placing a protective hand on the boy's shoulder. As they walked back to the bakery, Tommy tried to process all the information they had uncovered. The man he had helped worked at City Hall, had a nephew who visited him in the hospital, and a mysterious woman was posing as his secretary and lying about her identity. "Tommy, I'm going to ask you a question, and I want you to think carefully before answering," Martha said when they reached the bakery. "Are you absolutely sure you'd never seen this William before yesterday?" Tommy focused, trying to sift through his memories of the last 2 years living on the streets of Bridgeport. There was something familiar about the face of the man he had helped, but he couldn't quite place it. "Maybe? I don't know. I might have seen him somewhere, but I don't remember where," Tommy answered honestly. "What about the woman? Pamela? Are you sure you've never seen her before?" Martha continued. Tommy thought again. There was something about Pamela's gaze that had unsettled him from the start, an uncomfortable sense of familiarity. "I'm not sure either. She was looking at me in a way like she knew me from somewhere, but I don't remember where," he admitted. Martha fell silent for a few minutes, piecing together all the information they had gathered. "Tommy, I have a suggestion. How about you stay here at the bakery with me today? We can arrange a place for you to sleep here, at least until we figure out what's going on," she offered. Tommy hesitated. The offer was tempting, especially given the mystery surrounding the situation, but he was also afraid of getting used, to comfort and safety, only to lose it again. "Are you sure?" "I don't want to be a bother," he said timidly. "I'm absolutely sure. In fact, it would be a relief for me to know you're safe while we try to figure this out," Martha insisted. Tommy accepted the offer gratefully. For the first time in 2 years, he would have a safe roof over his head and someone genuinely concerned for his well-being. That afternoon, as he helped Martha in the bakery, Tommy began to feel like part of something bigger. It was a strange but comforting sensation, having responsibilities and feeling useful in a positive way. Around 5 o'clock, the bakery phone rang. Martha answered, and Tommy could immediately tell from the change in her expression that it was an important call. "Hello, Martha's Bakery. Yes, this is Martha. Oh, hello, I'm glad you called. Yes, Tommy is here with me. What?" Martha paused, listening carefully. "I see. Yes, of course, it would be great to talk in person. Tomorrow at 10. In the morning here at the bakery? Perfect. See you then." Tommy waited anxiously for Martha to hang up so he could find out what it was about. "That was William, the man you helped," Martha explained. "He got our contact from Nancy at the hospital and wants to meet us tomorrow morning here at the bakery to talk." "Did he say what he wants to talk about?" Tommy asked, feeling a mix of curiosity and nervousness. "He said he wants to thank you in person, but he also has some important questions to ask. And Tommy, he said he recognized you when he saw you. In the square but can't remember from where," Martha revealed. A chill ran down Tommy's spine. So he wasn't imagining things. There really was some past connection between him and William. "Mrs. Martha, I'm scared. What if he knows something about my mother? What if he's involved in the reason she had to leave?" said Tommy, his mind racing with terrifying possibilities. Martha knelt in front of Tommy, looking directly into his eyes with a maternal and protective expression. "Tommy, whatever the truth may be, you're not alone now. I'll be here with you, and I won't let anything bad happen. We promised we'd uncover the truth together, at our own pace and in our own way," Martha reassured him. Tommy felt some of his anxiety ease with Martha's comforting words. For the first time in a long while, he had someone he could trust. Completely. That night, Tommy slept on a makeshift mattress in the back of the bakery. It was simple but infinitely more comfortable and safe than anywhere he'd slept in the past 2 years. More important than the physical comfort was the emotional security he felt for the first time since his mother had left. Still, his sleep was restless, filled with confusing dreams where familiar faces blended with fragmented memories he couldn't fully piece together. The next morning, Tommy woke up early and helped Martha prepare the bakery for the day. At exactly 10 o'clock, a well-dressed middle-aged man appeared at the bakery door. Tommy recognized him immediately, though he looked far better than when Tommy had found him passed out in the square. "Good morning. Are you Martha and Tommy?" the man asked in a polite but emotionally charged voice that Tommy couldn't quite place. "That's us. Are you William?" Martha replied, inviting him inside. "Yes, and you must be the Tommy who saved my life," said William Parker, kneeling to meet Tommy at eye level. Tommy stood still for a few seconds, studying the man's face. There was definitely something familiar about him, but he still couldn't place it. "How are you feeling?" Tommy asked politely. "Much better, thanks to you," William replied with a genuine smile. "Tommy, may I ask you a few questions?" Tommy glanced at Martha, who nodded encouragingly, then gave a small nod of his own. "What's your full name, Tommy?" William asked gently. "Tommy Brooks Wilson," Tommy answered, unsure why this information mattered. William closed his eyes for a few seconds, as if processing something deeply significant. "Tommy, do you remember your mother? What was her name?" William continued, his voice trembling with restrained emotion. "Sarah Brooks Wilson. Why do you want to know?" Tommy replied, growing uneasy with the direction of the conversation. William took a deep breath before speaking again, and Tommy could see tears forming in his eyes. "Tommy, I think I know where your mother is," William said softly. Tommy's world stopped completely. After 2 years of waiting, searching, dreaming of this moment, someone finally had answers about his mother. Where is she? Is she okay? Why didn't she come back for me?" The questions poured out of Tommy in a desperate rush. William looked at Martha before answering, as if asking permission to continue. "Tommy, it's a complicated story. Your mother, she couldn't come back because some people stopped her," William explained carefully. "What people? Why?" Tommy asked, his voice rising with anxiety. "People who thought she was a threat to their business. Powerful people who didn't want certain truths to come out," William said, looking straight into Tommy's eyes. Martha stepped closer and placed a protective hand on Tommy's shoulder, sensing the conversation was becoming too heavy for an 8-year-old boy. "William, perhaps it would be better to explain this in a way more suitable for Tommy's age," Martha suggested gently. "You're right. Tommy, let me explain it differently," said William, sitting on a chair to be closer to Tommy's level. "Your mother discovered some wrongdoing happening in town. When she tried to report it, powerful people made threats against her and against you. That's why she had to leave, to protect both of you." Tommy absorbed this information slowly. He was finally beginning to understand why his mother had never come back. It wasn't because she didn't want to, but because she couldn't. "And now? Is she still in danger? Can I see her?" Tommy asked, hope and fear mixing in his voice. "That's the complicated part, Tommy. The people who threatened your mother are still in town and they still have power. But I'm working to change that," William replied. "Do you know my mother?" Tommy asked, starting to realize there was much more to this story than he was being told. William hesitated for a few seconds before answering. "Yes, Tommy, I knew your mother. In fact, she worked for me," he admitted. Tommy felt like another piece of the puzzle had fallen into place, but the full picture was still far from clear. "What did she do?" Tommy asked. "Your mother was a journalist, Tommy. She investigated corruption cases in the city hall where I work. That's how she discovered things some people wanted to keep hidden," William explained. Martha, who had remained silent while listening, decided to step in. "William, with all due respect, but how can Tommy trust you? How do we know you're telling the truth?" she asked protectively. William smiled sadly, understanding Martha's distrust completely. "Martha, you're right to be cautious. I have proof of what I'm saying," he said, pulling an old photo from his jacket pocket. "Tommy, do you recognize this person?" Tommy looked at the photo and felt his heart stop. It was his mother, younger, smiling next to William in what looked like a work setting. "That's my mum," Tommy whispered, taking the photo with trembling hands. "This was taken 3 years ago, when your mother still worked with me at City Hall. She was one of the most talented and honest journalists I've ever known," William said with genuine warmth in his voice. Tommy studied the photo closely. His mother looked happy and confident, so different from the worried and frightened woman he remembered from her last days before she left. "What happened to her? Why did she have to go?" Tommy asked, his need for answers outweighing his caution. "Tommy, your mother uncovered a major corruption scheme involving several important people in town. When she started digging deeper, she received threats, first against her, then against you," William explained sadly. "Threats from who?" Tommy pressed. William glanced around the bakery, as if checking if anyone could be listening, before answering quietly. "From people who were making a lot of Money through fraudulent city contracts. People who had a lot to lose if your mother's investigation went public. Martha, who had been listening carefully, asked the question that had been bothering her. William, if you were Sarah's boss, why didn't you protect her? Why did you let her be threatened? She asked directly. William lowered his head, visibly ashamed. That's the hardest part of the story, Martha. I tried to protect her, but I didn't have enough power. The people involved in the scheme had more influence than I did. And when the threats started, I made the mistake of advising Sarah to back off from the investigation, he admitted regretfully. Did she back off? Asked Tommy. No. Your mother was too brave to give up when she knew she was doing the right thing. That's why the threats escalated, and that's why she had to leave to protect you, replied William Parker. Tommy felt a mix of pride and sadness, pride in knowing his mother was a person of integrity who fought for what was right, but sadness in understanding that same integrity had torn them apart. Where is she now? Tommy asked, his voice trembling. She's in a small town in Pennsylvania, living under a different identity for safety. But Tommy, she never stopped trying to find a way back to you, said William Parker, pulling something else from his pocket. It was a handwritten letter, in a script Tommy immediately recognized as his mother's. She gave me this letter 6 months ago. When I managed to find her, told me to give it to you when it was safe, William explained, handing the letter to Tommy. Tommy took the letter with shaking hands. After 2 years without a word, he finally had a direct message from his mother. Can I read it now? Tommy asked, looking between the letter and William. Of course, Tommy, it's yours, William replied gently. Tommy carefully unfolded the letter and began reading softly. My dearest Tommy, if you're reading this, it means William kept his promise and found you. My love, not a single day goes by that I don't think of you. I know you must be confused, maybe even angry that I left, but you need to understand it was the only way to keep you safe. I uncovered terrible things about very powerful people, and they threatened me. They said if I didn't stop investigating, something awful would happen to you. I couldn't risk your life, so I agreed to leave on the condition they left you alone. I'm working with William and other good people to gather enough evidence to expose those responsible. When that happens, we can finally be together again. Until then, be as strong as I know you are. Trust William. He's one of the few who truly wants to help us. I love you more than anything in this world, and one day we'll hug each other again. With all my love, Mom. Tommy finished reading, tears streaming down his face. Finally, he had confirmation his mother hadn't abandoned him, that she was fighting to come back. Martha stepped closer and hugged Tommy tenderly, herself moved by the letter. Tommy, now you know the truth. Your mother loves you and is doing everything she can to return, Martha said softly. Tommy turned to William, wiping his tears. You said you're working to gather evidence. Does that mean one day I'll see my mother again? Tommy asked with renewed hope. Yes, Tommy. And actually that's why I was in the square that day. I'd just come from a secret meeting with people, helping us collect evidence against the corrupt, William revealed. Is that why you fainted from the stress? Tommy asked. Exactly, I was so nervous and worried I forgot to eat and ended up collapsing. If you hadn't helped me, I might have... Well, the consequences could have been much worse, William said, gratefully. Tommy began to understand how fate had conspired to bring them together. He'd saved the very person who could reunite him with his mother. William, what about that woman who showed up yesterday claiming to be your secretary? Martha asked, remembering Pamela. William Parker's face darkened immediately. What woman? He asked with clear concern. Martha and Tommy told him about the encounter with Pamela, her lies about William's name and her insistence that Tommy go alone to meet the supposed Richard Taylor. My God, murmured William, clearly alarmed. Tommy, you didn't go with her, did you? No, Mrs. Anderson advised me to be cautious. When the woman saw I wasn't alone, she made excuses and left, Tommy explained. William sighed in relief, but his expression remained troubled. Tommy, you just escaped something very dangerous. That woman, she works for the same people who threatened your mother, William revealed gravely. Tommy felt a chill run down his spine. He had been much closer to danger than he realized. How did they know I helped you? Tommy asked. They have informants everywhere, including the hospital. When they heard a child had helped me, they must have investigated until they found out who you were," William explained. "What now?" "Will they try to get me again?" Tommy asked fearfully. "Not if I can help it," William replied firmly. "Tommy, I need you to stay safe while we finish our investigation. They can't find out where you are." Martha spoke up then. "Tommy is safe here with me. No one will hurt him as long as I'm around," she said with maternal determination. William smiled gratefully at Martha. "Martha, you're an angel in Tommy's life, but I'm afraid your protection alone may not be enough against these people. They're dangerous and well-connected," he said worriedly. "What do you suggest then?" Martha asked. "I have some ideas, but first I need to understand the situation better. Tommy, can you tell me exactly what the woman said? Every word you remember could be important," William requested. Tommy meticulously recounted the entire conversation with Pamela, from their first meeting in Central Square to the failed attempt to take him to the hospital. William listened carefully, occasionally asking questions to clarify details. "And she knew my name from the start, but never explained how she found out," Tommy added at the end. "That confirms they were investigating you as soon as they heard about the help you gave me. Tommy, you're lucky to have someone like Martha protecting you," William said. "But what do we do now?" Martha asked. "If these people know Tommy lives on the streets, they'll find him eventually." William was thoughtful for a few moments before responding. "I have a proposal. Martha, would you be willing to officially care for Tommy for a few months? I can arrange all the necessary paperwork," William offered. "Of course, it would be an honor to look after Tommy," Martha replied immediately, tears of happiness in her eyes. Tommy looked from Martha to William, hardly believing what he was hearing. After 2 years on the streets, he would finally have a real home again. "What about my mother? When will I see her?" Tommy asked, though grateful for the new circumstances. "If all goes well with our investigation, in a few months we'll have enough evidence to expose the corrupt. Once they're arrested, your mother can return safely," William explained. "Are you sure you can do this?" Tommy asked, hope and fear mingling in his voice. "Tommy, I'll do everything in my power. I owe it to you, to your mother, and to all the honest people in our city," William promised solemnly. Martha hugged Tommy again, both moved by the prospects of the future. "Tommy, you'll never be alone again," Martha whispered in the boy's ear. At that moment, Tommy felt something he hadn't experienced in 2 years, genuine hope that things could get better, that he might have a family again. But even amid the happiness of the moment, part of him remained alert. The people who had threatened his mother were still out there, still a danger. What if they found out where he was? As if reading his thoughts, William spoke to Tommy seriously. "Tommy, I need you to be very careful for the next few months. Don't leave the bakery alone, don't talk to strangers, and if anything seems suspicious, tell Martha or me right away," William instructed. "I promise," Tommy replied, understanding the gravity of the situation. William stood to leave, but first handed Martha a card. "This is my personal number. Anything, any concern at all, call me immediately. And Martha, tomorrow I'll start arranging the paperwork so you can be Tommy's temporary legal guardian," he said. After William left, Tommy and Martha stayed in the bakery, processing everything that had happened that morning. In just a few hours, Tommy's life had completely changed. "Mrs. Martha, are you sure you want to take care of me?" Tommy asked, timidly. "Tommy, from the moment I met you yesterday, I felt something special. It's like you came into my life exactly when I needed you." "Of course I want to take care of you," Martha answered warmly. Tommy smiled, feeling truly happy for the first time in a long while. But that happiness was cut short when he noticed a man watching the bakery from across the street. "Mrs. Martha, there's a man standing over there staring this way," Tommy whispered, trying not to be obvious as he subtly pointed. Martha looked in the direction he indicated and saw a tall, thin, well-dressed man who immediately averted his gaze when he realized he'd been spotted. "That's the man Nancy described as William's nephew," Martha murmured, a chill running down her spine. Tommy's heart raced. If that man was part of the same organization as Pamela, it meant they had found out where he was. "What do we do?" Tommy asked in panic. "We'll go to the back of the bakery and call William right away," Martha decided, trying to stay calm so as not to alarm Tommy further. They moved to the back of the bakery away from the windows, and Martha dialed the number William had left. "William, it's Martha. There's a man watching the bakery. Tommy thinks it's the same one who pretended to be your nephew at the hospital," she said quickly when he answered. "Martha, get out of there now. Use the back exit and head to City Hall. I'll send someone I trust to pick you up at the bakery's back door in 10 minutes, William urged. "Understood," Martha replied, hanging up and turning to Tommy. "Tommy, we need to leave right now." Tommy grabbed only his mother's letter and the photo William had given him. Martha quickly locked up the bakery and they slipped out the back, hurrying toward the parallel street. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It helps us a lot as we're just starting out. Now, back to the story. As they rushed down the back street, Tommy couldn't stop looking around, half expecting Pamela or the mysterious man to appear at any moment. "Mrs. Martha, do you think they know where you live too?" Tommy asked worriedly. "I don't know, Tommy. But William will know how to protect us," replied Martha, trying to sound more confident than she actually felt. Exactly 10 minutes later, a simple car approached them. The driver waved and Martha recognized him as a worker she had seen at City Hall before. "Martha and Tommy? William sent me to pick you up," said the man, a middle-aged gentleman with a trustworthy appearance. They got into the car and were quickly taken to City Hall, using a side entrance Tommy didn't even know existed. William Parker was waiting for them in a private room, clearly worried. "Are you both okay?" he asked immediately. "We are. But William, how did they find out so quickly where Tommy was?" Martha wanted to know. "They must have followed you to the bakery after the meeting in the square yesterday. I should have seen this coming," William said, blaming himself for the situation. "What now?" asked Tommy, still shaken by the experience. "Now you'll stay in a safe place while I speed up our investigation. We can't wait any longer. We need to expose these criminals before they hurt you," William decided. He took them to a small but comfortable apartment at the back of the City Hall building, which was occasionally used to shelter people in special situations. "You can stay here as long as needed. Only I and two absolutely trusted people know about this place," William explained. Tommy explored the apartment curiously. It was simple but had everything they needed: 2 bedrooms, a small kitchen, a bathroom, and a living room with a TV. "Is it really safe?" Tommy asked. "Very safe, and on top of that I'll have discreet security watching the building," William assured. Martha settled into the apartment as if it were her new temporary home, already making plans to make the place more welcoming for Tommy. "William, how long do you think we'll need to stay here?" Martha asked. "If all goes well, a few weeks. We're very close to getting the final evidence we need," William replied confidently. That night, Tommy lay in a real bed for the first time in 2 years. It was comfortable and safe, but he still had trouble sleeping. His mind wouldn't stop processing all the changes and revelations of the past few days. In the next room, Martha was also awake, thinking about how her life had changed so drastically. 2 days ago, she was just the owner of a simple bakery. Now she was protecting a special child and getting involved in a fight against corruption in the city. The next day, William visited them with important news. "Tommy, I managed to speak to your mother last night. I told her I found you and that you're safe with me," William said with a smile. "How is she? What did she say?" Tommy asked eagerly. "She's doing well but very emotional knowing about you. She said to tell you she's so proud of the brave young man you've become," William replied, handing Tommy another letter. Tommy opened the letter immediately. "My dear Tommy, William told me how you saved him in the square. I'm so proud of the wonderful person you're becoming. I also heard about Martha, and my heart is full of gratitude that she's taking care of you. I know it's hard to understand everything happening right now, but I want you to know we're very close to the end of this situation. Soon we'll be together again. Be good to Martha and William. They're doing everything to protect us. With all my love and longing, Mum. P.S. William has a surprise I sent for you." Tommy looked at William expectantly. "What surprise?" Tommy asked, his eyes shining. William smiled and pulled a small package from his pocket. "Your mother gave me this to deliver when I found you," he said, handing the package to Tommy. Tommy opened it carefully and found a simple silver chain with a small heart-shaped pendant. Inside the heart was a tiny engraved photo of him and his mother. "She wore this all the time," Tommy whispered, remembering seeing his mother with that necklace. "She said she wants you to wear it until you two meet again," William explained. Tommy immediately put the chain around his neck, feeling closer to his mother than he had in 2 years. "William, can I ask you something?" Tommy said after a few minutes. "Of course, Tommy. Why are you doing all this for us? You could just pretend you don't know me and go on with your normal life," Tommy asked with genuine curiosity. William thought for a few seconds before answering. "Tommy, your mother was more than just an employee to me. She was a true friend, a person of integrity who believed in doing what was right. When she was forced to leave, I felt like a coward for not being able to protect her. Now I have the chance to make up for my mistake and do what's just," William explained sincerely. "And you're not afraid of these people?" Tommy asked. "I am, Tommy. But sometimes doing the right thing is more important than our own safety," William replied. Martha, who had been listening to the conversation, smiled proudly at William. "Tommy, you're learning from very good people about what it means to have character," she said. Over the following days, a routine settled into place at the secret apartment. Tommy studied with books Martha had managed to get, helped with household chores, and slowly began to feel like part of a family again. William visited them daily, always bringing updates on the investigation. Each day they got closer to gathering enough evidence to expose the corruption network. "How's the investigation going?" Martha asked during one of his visits. "Very well. We've obtained documents proving the overbilling scheme in public projects. We also have recordings of incriminating conversations," William reported. Excitedly. "Does that mean my mother might come back soon?" Tommy asked hopefully. "Very soon, Tommy. Maybe in a few weeks we can file the official complaints," William replied. But the next day, William arrived with a worried expression that immediately alarmed Tommy and Martha. "What happened?" Martha asked. "We've had a setback. We found out there's an informant within our investigation team. Someone's leaking information to the corrupt officials," William revealed gravely. "Does that mean they know about the evidence you've gathered?" Tommy asked anxiously. "Most likely, yes, and worse, they probably know we're close to exposing them. That makes them even more dangerous," William explained. "What about us? Do they know where we are?" Martha pressed. "I don't think they know this exact location, but I can't be sure. We'll have to be even more cautious," William answered. That night, Tommy woke to a strange noise coming from the hallway. He got up quietly and went to the living room window, trying to see if there was any suspicious movement in the City Hall courtyard. That's when he spotted 2 shadowy figures sneaking toward the building where they were staying. Tommy rushed to wake Martha. "Mrs. Anderson, there are strange people outside," he whispered urgently. Martha woke immediately and followed Tommy to the window. She saw the same figures he had noticed. "Tommy, get dressed quickly. We need to leave," Martha said firmly. As they prepared to escape, they heard footsteps in the building's hallway. Someone had gotten inside. "This way," whispered Martha, remembering an emergency staircase William had shown them on the first day. They slipped out quietly through the back window and descended the fire escape. Tommy carried only the letter and the photo of his mother, along with the necklace she had sent. When they reached the ground, they heard voices coming from the apartment they had just left. "They're not here, they must have escaped," said a man's voice. "The boss won't like this. He wanted the boy tonight," replied another. Tommy and Martha exchanged terrified glances. They really were being hunted. Martha grabbed her phone and called William. "William, they found the apartment. We escaped through the fire escape and are in the backyard," she whispered into the phone. "Get out of there now. Go to the parking lot of St. Patrick's Church. It's 2 blocks away. I'll meet you there in 15 minutes, William instructed quickly. Tommy and Martha moved through the shadows, avoiding main streets and sticking to alleys and side roads until they reached the church. 15 minutes later, William arrived driving an unfamiliar car. "Get in fast," he said, opening the doors. "How did they find us?" Martha asked as soon as they were inside. "The informant must have figured out about the apartment. Tommy, I'm sorry, but things just got a lot more dangerous," William said as he drove toward an unknown destination. Where are we going? Tommy asked. Someplace even I didn't know about until today. A contact of mine arranged a completely secret hideout, William explained. They drove for over an hour, leaving the city and entering a rural road Tommy had never seen before. William, wouldn't all this be easier if you just handed the evidence to the police? Martha asked. William sighed deeply before answering. Martha, the problem is we don't know who to trust in the local police. The corruption scheme could involve people at every level of power, he explained. So, how do we fix this? Tommy asked, starting to feel hopeless. We take our evidence straight to state authorities who have no ties to the city. But first we need to make sure you're safe, William said. Finally, they arrived at a small, isolated farm, where they were greeted by an elderly couple who seemed to have been expecting them. Martha, Tommy, this is Edward and Betty, old friends who agreed to help, William introduced. Welcome. You'll be safe here, Betty said with a warm smile. The farm was simple but comfortable, with a beautiful view of the surrounding mountains. Tommy immediately felt more relaxed in the quiet, secluded setting. No one will look for you here. Edward and Betty have no known connection to me or City Hall, William explained. How long will we stay? Tommy asked. As long as it takes for me to get our evidence to the right authorities and make sure the guilty are arrested, William replied. That night, Tommy slept better than he had in weeks. The fresh farm air and the feeling of being truly hidden from the dangers of the city put him at ease. The next day, William left for the state capital, taking with him all the evidence he had gathered about the corruption scheme. Tommy, when William comes back, this will all be over. Your mother will be able to come home, and you'll be together again, Martha said, trying to keep the boys' spirits up. Tommy spent his days helping Edward with small farm chores and talking with Betty, who turned out to be a wonderful storyteller. Tommy, you're a very special boy, said Betty during one of their walks around the property. Not every child can be so brave in such difficult situations. Sometimes I don't feel brave, Mrs. Anderson. Sometimes I'm just scared, Tommy admitted honestly. Do you know the difference between brave people and cowards, Tommy? Betty asked. It's not that brave people don't feel fear, it's that they do the right thing even when they're afraid. Tommy reflected on those words, remembering all the hard decisions he'd made in the past few days. 3 days later, William returned to the farm with an expression Tommy couldn't decipher. It seemed like a mix of relief and worry. William, what happened? Martha asked immediately. I managed to deliver all the evidence to the state attorney's office. They're very interested in the case and are launching an operation to arrest those involved, William reported. That's great, Tommy exclaimed. When can my mom come back? Tommy, that's the tricky part. The operation will take a few weeks to organize. Until then, you all need to stay hidden, William explained. But at least now we know there will be a definite end to this, Martha said optimistically. Yes, but there's one more thing I need to tell you, William continued, his expression growing more serious. The state authorities want Tommy to give a statement as a witness. A statement about what? I didn't see any crime, Tommy said, confused. Tommy, your own story is evidence of what these people are capable of. The fact that they tried to kidnap you to silence your mother is part of the case, William explained. Tommy fell silent, processing the information. He'd never thought of himself as a witness to something important. Will it be dangerous? He asked. No, you'll give your statement safely with police protection. And after that, the guilty ones will be arrested and you can have a normal life again, William assured him. And will my mom be there? Tommy asked hopefully. Yes, Tommy. Your mother will also give a statement. And then you can be together. Again, William promised. For the first time in weeks, Tommy allowed himself to dream of the moment he'd see his mother again. It might feel strange after 2 years apart, but he knew the love between them hadn't changed. The following week, William brought even better news. The operation has been moved up. The arrest warrants will be served next Monday, and you'll give your statements on Tuesday, William said excitedly. Does that mean my mom is coming here soon? Tommy asked, barely containing his excitement. She'll arrive on Sunday, Tommy. You'll see each other Sunday afternoon, William confirmed. Tommy spent the rest of the week in a mix of anxiety and anticipation. What would it be like to see his mother again after so long? Would she still be the same person he remembered? Had he changed much in those 2 years? Martha noticed Tommy's nervousness and tried to reassure him. "Tommy, the love between a mother and son doesn't change with time. When you see each other, it'll be like you were never apart," she said tenderly. "Mrs. Anderson, after my mum comes back, will you still want to stay around?" Tommy asked shyly. "Tommy, in these few days taking care of you, I've learned what it means to be a mother. If your mom agrees, I'd love to stay part of your life," Martha replied, tears in her eyes. On Sunday morning, Tommy woke with a strange feeling in his stomach. This was the day he'd dreamed of for 2 whole years. William arrived at the farm at noon. "Tommy, are you ready to see your mother?" he asked with a smile. "More than ready," Tommy answered, though his hands were shaking with nerves. They drove to a hotel in the neighboring town where his mother was staying under police protection. When they arrived at the hotel, William led them to a suite on the 3rd floor. At the door, he turned to Tommy. "Tommy, your mother is very nervous, too. You've both changed these past 2 years, but love hasn't," William said, knocking on the door. The door opened, and Tommy saw the face that had visited his dreams every night for 2 years. "Tommy," his mother whispered, tears already streaming down her face. "Mom!" Tommy shouted, running into her arms. Mother and son embraced with an intensity that seemed to make up for all the lost days. They both cried and laughed at the same time, unable to believe they were finally together again. "My boy, how you've grown," Sarah said, holding Tommy's face in her hands. "You look so different, so mature." "Mom, I knew you'd come back to me." "I always knew," Tommy said, clinging to her as if afraid she might disappear again. Martha watched the scene with tears in her eyes, happy to have been part of this long-awaited reunion. "Sarah, I'd like you to meet Martha. She took care of Tommy as if he were her own son," William said. Sarah stood up and hugged Martha warmly. "How can I ever thank you for everything you've done for my son?" Sarah said with endless gratitude. "No need to thank me. Tommy brought light into my life too," Martha replied sincerely. They spent the rest of the day talking, Tommy sharing about his 2 years on the streets and his mother explaining her life in hiding in Pennsylvania. There was so much to tell, so much lost time to make up for. "Tommy, I missed you. Every single day. There were things I wanted to tell you, hugs I wanted to give you, advice I wanted to share," Sarah said, still holding her son. "Mom, now we have the rest of our lives for that," Tommy wisely replied. On Monday, William visited them with the final news. All the warrants have been executed. 7 people were arrested, including the woman who posed as my secretary and the man who was chasing you, William reported triumphantly. "Does that mean it's over, that we're safe?" Sarah asked. "Completely safe. Tomorrow you'll give your statements, and after that you can go home," William confirmed. "Home," Tommy repeated thoughtfully. "Where will our home be, Mom?" "Wherever you want, Tommy. We can go back to Bridgeport if you want to stay close to Martha. Or we can start fresh somewhere else," Sarah said. "I want to stay near Mrs. Martha. She's family now too," Tommy decided without hesitation. Sarah smiled, understanding the special bond that had formed between Tommy and Martha. "Then we'll stay in Bridgeport. And Martha, I hope you'll accept being an honorary grandmother to Tommy," Sarah said affectionately. "It would be an honor," Martha replied emotionally. On Tuesday, Tommy gave his statement with the courage of someone far older than his 8 years. He told his story in detail, helping the authorities fully understand the criminal scheme and its consequences for innocent people. After his testimony, the prosecutor in charge of the case personally commended him. "Tommy, you're a hero. Your bravery helped bring justice to our town," the prosecutor said. "I just wanted my mum back," Tommy replied modestly. A week later, Tommy, Sarah, and Martha were at the reopening of Martha's Bakery. The whole town had learned of the story through the newspapers, and many came to praise Tommy for his courage. "Tommy, you saved our town from corruption," said the new mayor, who had taken office after the arrests. Tommy looked at his mother and Martha, the 2 most important people in his life, and smiled. "I didn't save anyone. I just helped a man who was feeling sick in the square," Tommy said simply. But Sarah knew her son had done much more than that. He had kept hope alive when all seemed lost, had been brave when he could have given up, and had opened his heart to accept the love of a stranger who became family. William Parker, who had been promoted to municipal secretary after the cleanup, at City Hall, visited the family regularly. He felt grateful for having redeemed his past mistake and proud of the role he had played in reuniting Tommy with his mother. "Tommy, there's something I want to give you," William said during one of his visits a few months later. He handed Tommy an envelope, which Tommy opened curiously. "What's this?" Tommy asked, looking at an official document. "It's a full scholarship for you to attend one of the best schools in the city. Your mother already agreed," William explained. Tommy looked at his mother in surprise. "Mom, is it true?" "It's true, sweetheart. You deserve the best opportunities, and Mrs. Martha will keep looking after you when I'm at work," Sarah confirmed. Tommy hugged William gratefully. In just a few months, his life had completely changed, from an abandoned boy on the streets to a loved child with a bright future ahead. That night, as Tommy slept in their new home, a small but cozy apartment Sarah had rented near Martha's bakery, Sarah and Martha talked in the kitchen. "Martha, how can I ever repay you for everything you've done for us?" Sarah asked. "Sarah, Tommy gave me something I had lost long ago. A purpose, a family. I should be the one thanking you," Martha replied. "Then we're a strange family, but we're a family," Sarah said with a smile. "The best family Tommy could have," Martha agreed. Months passed, and Tommy adjusted well to his new life. He attended the private school, helped at Martha's bakery in the afternoons, and spent evenings at home with his mother, making up for lost time. Sarah returned to work as a journalist, now focusing on stories that helped the local community. She never wanted to get involved in dangerous investigations. Again, her priority was being present in Tommy's life. One day, while Tommy was helping Martha at the bakery, she asked, "Tommy, do you regret anything that happened these past months?" Tommy thought for a few minutes before answering, "You know, Mrs. Martha, I regret having lived on the streets for 2 years. But if I hadn't, I wouldn't have been in the square that day to help William. And if I hadn't helped William, maybe I never would have found my mother again," Tommy said thoughtfully. "That's called destiny, Tommy," Martha replied with a proud smile. "Or maybe it's called doing the right thing even when it's hard," Tommy answered, repeating something he had learned from Betty at the farm. Martha laughed, impressed by the boy's wisdom. "Tommy, you're going to be a very special man when you grow up. So I'll try to be like you, brave, kind, and always ready to help those in need," Tommy promised. That afternoon, when Sarah came to pick Tommy up from the bakery, she found him teaching a younger boy to read. It was a neighborhood child whose family couldn't afford private lessons. "Tommy, what are you doing?" Sarah asked curiously. "I'm teaching Jimmy to read, Mom. Martha said I could use the bakery table to give lessons to kids who can't afford them," Tommy explained naturally. Sarah smiled, realizing her son had inherited her sense of justice and her desire to help others. "I'm so proud of you, sweetheart," she said, kissing Tommy's forehead. "Mom, remember when you wrote to me that I was brave? I think I learned that from you," said Tommy, hugging his mother. Martha watched the scene with tears of happiness in her eyes. In less than a year, she had gained a complete family and had helped reunite a mother and son who deeply loved each other. "Martha, what are you thinking?" asked Sarah, noticing her friend's emotional expression. "I'm thinking that sometimes the hardest things in life lead us exactly where we need to be," Martha replied wisely. Tommy looked around the bakery, at Martha, who had become like a grandmother to him, at his mother, who had fought so hard to return to his life, at Jimmy, who was learning to read with his help. They were all there because of one morning when he had decided to help a stranger. But the peace Tommy had found was about to be tested again. 2 weeks later, as Tommy helped out at the bakery on a Saturday morning, a well-dressed man walked into the shop. He wore an expensive suit and glanced around with an expression Tommy couldn't decipher. "Good morning. I'm looking for Tommy Brooks Wilson," the man said politely to Martha. Tommy felt a familiar chill run down his spine. After everything he'd been through, any stranger asking for him immediately put him on alert. "Who's asking?" Martha inquired cautiously, positioning herself protectively between the man and Tommy. "My name is Dr. Gregory Miller. I'm an attorney representing the Thompson family," the man explained, handing Martha a business card. Tommy immediately recognized the last name. Thompson was William Parker's real surname. "Do you know William Parker?" Tommy asked, stepping forward curiously. I do, Tommy. In fact, I'm here at his family's request. Dr. Gregory replied with a smile that didn't reach his eyes. Martha studied the lawyer's card and noted that it seemed legitimate, but she remained cautious. What does his family want with Tommy? Martha asked directly. Well, it's a somewhat delicate situation. I can explain, but perhaps it would be better if Tommy's parents were present for this conversation, Dr. Gregory suggested. My mom's at work, but Mrs. Martha is like a grandmother to me. You can speak in front of her, Tommy said, firmly. Dr. Gregory hesitated for a few seconds before continuing. Tommy, the Thompson family would like to express their gratitude in a more substantial way for what you did for William Parker, he said carefully. What do you mean? Tommy asked, not quite understanding where this was going. They'd like to offer financial compensation, a considerable sum that would be deposited into an account in your name to be used when you come of age, Dr. Gregory explained. Tommy and Martha exchanged surprised glances. This was the last thing they expected to hear. How much money? Tommy asked with innocent curiosity. $50,000, Dr. Gregory replied, carefully observing their reactions. Martha felt as if the ground had disappeared beneath her feet. It was an enormous amount, especially for a family that had faced so many financial hardships. That's a lot of money, Tommy said honestly. But why do they want to give it to me? Tommy, you saved William Parker's life. To his family, that's priceless, Dr. Gregory explained. Martha, with her life experience and sharp instincts, sensed something odd about the offer. Dr. Gregory, may I ask something? If the family truly wants to thank Tommy, why didn't William Parker come in person to make this offer? Martha questioned. Dr. Gregory seemed momentarily uncomfortable with the question. William is very busy with his responsibilities at City Hall. He delegated this task to me, he replied evasively. Tommy, who had learned to be distrustful through his recent experiences, noticed the hesitation in the lawyer's answer. Dr. Gregory, can you give me William's phone number? I want to talk to him before accepting anything, Tommy asked shrewdly. Well, Tommy, that might be a bit complicated. William is in very important meetings this week and… Dr. Gregory began but was interrupted. Then maybe it's best to wait until he's available, Martha said firmly. Tommy, how about we call your mother and tell her about this offer? Dr. Gregory stood up quickly, clearly uncomfortable with the direction of the conversation. Of course, but don't take too long to decide. This offer has a deadline, he said hurriedly, heading for the door. Why is there a deadline? Tommy asked, even more suspicious. Bureaucratic matters, Tommy. Bureaucratic matters, Dr. Gregory replied vaguely, leaving the bakery without further explanation. As soon as the lawyer was gone, Tommy and Martha exchanged worried glances. Mrs. Anderson, that man was lying about something, Tommy said with certainty. I felt it too, Tommy. Let's call William right away, Martha agreed. She picked up the phone and dialed William's personal number. After a few rings, he answered. William, it's Martha. I need to tell you about a strange visit we had today, she said, recounting the entire conversation with Dr. Gregory. Tommy could only hear one side of the call, but from Martha's increasingly concerned expression, he knew something was very wrong. I see. Yes, we're fine. No, we didn't accept anything. You're coming here now. Good, Martha said before hanging up. What did William say? Tommy asked anxiously. Tommy, William has never heard of this Dr. Gregory, and his family never authorized any financial compensation, Martha revealed gravely. Tommy felt his stomach twist. Once again, someone was trying to deceive him, this time under the guise of generosity. Who do you think that man was? Tommy asked. I don't know, Tommy, but William is coming here now so we can talk in person, Martha replied, immediately locking the bakery door. 20 minutes later, William arrived at the bakery with a mix of worry and anger on his face. Tommy, Martha, are you both okay? He asked immediately. We are, but William, who was that man? Why did he lie about representing your family? Tommy pressed. William took a deep breath before answering. Tommy, I have bad news. We found out that not everyone involved in the corruption scheme was arrested. Some got away and are trying different strategies to silence witnesses, he explained carefully. Silence? What do you mean? Tommy asked, though he already suspected the answer. They believe that if they can convince you to take money and then disappear from town, you won't be available to testify in future trials, William said. Martha paled at the revelation. William, does that mean Tommy is still in danger? Unfortunately, yes, but now that we know their plan, we can prepare better, William replied. Tommy sank into a chair, feeling the weight of knowing his ordeal wasn't over. Why won't they give up? They've already been arrested. They've already lost. Why keep coming after me? Tommy asked in frustration. Tommy, desperate people do desperate things. They know they could still face more legal trouble, and they think eliminating key witnesses might reduce their sentences, William explained. And my mother, is she in danger too? Tommy worried. Your mother is safe at work, which has its own security, but Tommy will have to take some extra precautions with you, said William. What kind of precautions? Asked Martha. First, Tommy can no longer walk around town alone. Second, we'll install a security system at the bakery. And third, I'll arrange discreet protection for you. William listed. Tommy absorbed this information with a mix of fear and resignation. It seemed like every time he thought his life was returning to normal, new problems arose. William, how long will this last? Tommy asked wearily. Tommy, I'm working with state authorities to speed up the remaining processes. If all goes well, in a few months this will be history for good, William promised. That afternoon, Sarah arrived at the bakery and was immediately informed about the situation. Her reaction was one of protective panic. Tommy can't be exposed like this, Sarah exclaimed. Maybe we should move to another city until this is all over. Mom, I don't want to move. I like our life here. I like Mrs. Martha. I like school, Tommy protested. Tommy, your safety is more important than anything else, Sarah insisted. William intervened in the discussion. Sarah, I understand your concern, but running away isn't the solution. These people have resources and connections. They could find you anywhere. It's better to face the situation here where we have support and know the lay of the land, William argued. Sarah stayed silent for a few minutes, weighing her options. All right, but I want maximum protection for Tommy. I can't lose him again, Sarah finally decided. You'll have all the protection you need, William assured. In the following days, Tommy's life changed drastically once again. He could no longer walk freely through the streets, couldn't play alone in the park, and there were always adults watching his every move. Mrs. Martha, this feels like prison, Tommy complained one particularly frustrating afternoon. I know, dear, but it's temporary. Soon you'll have your freedom back, Martha comforted, though she herself felt stifled by the security measures. A week later, during what seemed like a normal morning at the bakery, Tommy noticed a man reading a newspaper at a cafe table for several hours. It was the third day in a row the same man had appeared and stayed for long periods. Mrs. Martha, that man over there, he's been coming here every day, Tommy whispered discreetly. Martha looked in the direction he indicated and recognized the man Tommy mentioned. You're right, Tommy. I'll call William, Martha decided, heading for the phone. But before she could complete the call, the man stood and walked toward the counter. Excuse me, are you Martha and Tommy? He asked politely. We are. And you are? Martha replied cautiously. I'm Detective Mike, from the police. Department, I'm here to protect you, the man said, showing what appeared to be an official badge. Tommy stepped closer to examine the identification, his instincts of distrust still sharp from recent experiences. How do we know you're really a detective? Tommy asked shrewdly. Detective Mike smiled, impressed by the boy's sharpness. You're very smart, Tommy. William Parker told me you'd be cautious, he said, pulling out his phone. How about I call William now and you can speak with him directly? Martha agreed, and after a brief phone conversation with William, they confirmed that Detective Mike had indeed been assigned to protect them. Sorry for the suspicion, Detective, but lately we can't trust anyone, Martha apologized. Don't apologize. Caution is exactly what you need right now. And Tommy, you did the right thing questioning my identity, praised the detective. Tommy felt a bit more relaxed knowing there was official protection, but he still remained vigilant. Over the next few days, Tommy settled into a restrictive but safe routine. School in the morning with discreet escort, the bakery in the afternoon under supervision, home at night with his mother. It was a limited life, but at least it was safe. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, don't forget to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us as we're just starting out. Now continuing. 2 weeks later, just as Tommy was getting used to the security restrictions, William brought news that changed everything again. "Tommy, Sarah, Martha, I have important news," William announced during one of his afternoon visits. "We've located and arrested the last fugitives from the corruption scheme." Tommy felt a wave of relief and hope. "Does that mean it's over? That I'm safe now?" he asked eagerly. "It means the immediate danger has passed, yes. But Tommy, there's still something I need to tell you," William said with a serious expression. "What else?" Sarah asked apprehensively. "During the interrogations of the prisoners, we discovered something about Tommy's past that you all need to know," William said carefully. Tommy felt his heart race. What secret about his past could still exist? "William, please, just tell us," Martha urged, noticing Tommy's growing anxiety. "Tommy, your mother never told you, but you have an older brother," William revealed, gently. Tommy's world stopped completely. "A brother? How is that possible?" "A brother," he repeated in shock. "Mum, is this true?" Sarah began to cry, her hands trembling as she searched for the right words. "Tommy, my love, yes, you have an older brother. His name is Nathan," she confirmed through tears. "Where is he? Why did you never tell me about him?" Tommy asked, his voice a mix of confusion and hurt. Sarah took a deep breath before explaining. "Tommy, when Nathan was 12 and you were 3, we went through a very difficult time. I was unemployed. I couldn't support both of you alone. Nathan, he went to live with my sister in another city temporarily," she said painfully. "Temporarily. It's been 5 years," Tommy exclaimed, beginning to grasp the magnitude of what was being revealed. "I know, Tommy. I always planned to bring him back, but then the trouble with my investigative journalism started, then the threats, and I couldn't put Nathan in danger too," Sarah continued, her voice thick with guilt and sadness. Tommy fell silent for several minutes, processing this devastating information. He had a brother he never knew existed. "Does he know about me?" Tommy finally asked. "He does, Tommy. Nathan always knew about you. In fact, when he found out you were living on the streets, he wanted to come to Bridgeport to look for you, but my sister wouldn't let him," Sarah revealed. "He wanted to find me?" Tommy asked, a spark of hope shining in his eyes. "He did. Nathan always asked about you, always said he wanted to meet his little brother," Sarah said with a sad smile. William, who had remained silent during this family revelation, decided to step in. "Tommy, there's more. During our investigation, we found out Nathan was also being watched by the criminals. They planned to use him as leverage if they couldn't get to you," William informed him. "My brother is in danger?" Tommy asked, alarmed. "Not anymore. As soon as we uncovered the plan, we arranged protection for him too. And now that all those involved have been arrested, he's completely safe," William assured him. Tommy looked at his mother with an expression that mixed sorrow and hope. "Mom, can I meet my brother?" asked Tommy in a small voice. "Of course you can, sweetheart. Actually, Nathan is coming to Bridgeport next week. My sister finally agreed to let him visit," said Sarah, hugging Tommy tenderly. Martha, who had silently witnessed the whole conversation, moved closer to Tommy. "Tommy, you're going to have an older brother to protect you and teach you things. That's wonderful," she said affectionately. "Mrs. Anderson, what if he doesn't like me? What if we're too different? It's been so long since we've seen each other." Tommy voiced his insecurities. "Tommy, you're brothers. The love between brothers overcomes any differences," Martha reassured him. William smiled, seeing how Martha always knew just what to say to calm Tommy. "Tommy, I can promise you one thing. Nathan is just as eager to see you as you are to meet him," said William. Over the next week, Tommy could barely focus on his usual activities. His mind kept imagining what his older brother would be like, what kind of person he had become, whether they would have anything in common. "Mom, what was Nathan like when he was little?" Tommy asked during one of their nightly talks. "Nathan was always very protective and responsible. Even as a child, he always looked after you while I was working. You two were very close," Sarah recalled with nostalgia. "Do I remember anything?" Tommy wanted to know. "You were very young when he left, Tommy, but he used to make you laugh," teach you how to walk, and tell you bedtime stories, Sarah said, her eyes shining with memories. Will he remember me? Tommy asked uncertainly. I'm sure he will, sweetheart. Nathan never forgot you, Sarah assured him. On the day Nathan was set to arrive, Tommy woke before sunrise. He was anxious, nervous, and excited all at once. Tommy, relax, your brother isn't coming until this afternoon, Sarah said, laughing at her son's restlessness. I know, Mom, but I can't stop thinking about him, Tommy admitted. Martha had closed the bakery early to be there for the brothers' reunion. William also came, wanting to witness this special moment. At 3 in the afternoon, a car stopped in front of Sarah's apartment. Tommy watched from the window and saw a tall, lanky teenager step out of the vehicle. Even after 5 years apart, there was something familiar about that face. Is that him, Mum? Tommy whispered. Yes, sweetheart, that's Nathan, Sarah confirmed, tears already beginning to fall. Tommy rushed down the stairs, followed by Sarah, Martha, and William. When he reached the ground floor, he saw his brother, standing on the sidewalk, looking up at the building with a mix of nervousness and expectation. The two brothers stared at each other for a few seconds that felt like an eternity. Nathan had grown so much, he was now a tall, strong 17-year-old. Tommy was still small for his age, but his eyes held a maturity beyond his 8 years. Tommy, Nathan said hesitantly. Nathan, Tommy replied with the same uncertainty. Then, as if a switch had been flipped, they both ran toward each other. Nathan knelt to be at Tommy's height, and they hugged with an intensity that surprised everyone present. My little brother, look how much you've grown, Nathan said, his voice thick with emotion. My big brother. I always wanted an older brother, Tommy exclaimed, clinging to Nathan as if afraid he might disappear again. Sarah watched the scene through tears of happiness, finally seeing her two sons together again. Nathan, Tommy, come. Let's go up to the house, Sarah invited after a few minutes. In the apartment, the two brothers sat side by side on the couch, still processing their reunion. Tommy, tell me everything about yourself. What's your life like here? What do you enjoy doing? Nathan asked with genuine interest. Tommy began, recounting his current life, school, Martha's bakery, his friends, his favorite activities. Nathan listened attentively, asking questions and showing pride in his younger brother. And you, Nathan? What's your life like? Tommy asked. I go to a technical school, work part-time at an auto repair shop and play soccer for the town team. But Tommy, I always felt like something was missing in my life. Now I know what it was. It was you, Nathan said sincerely. Martha, who was watching the brothers interact, felt her heart warm as she saw how naturally they connected. Nathan, Tommy has told me so much about you these past few days. He was really excited to meet you, Martha said. And I was excited to meet him, Mrs. Martha. Tommy's lucky to have someone like you looking after him, Nathan replied politely. William, who had been observing the whole family reunion, approached the brothers. Nathan, Tommy, do you know how lucky you are? Not all families get to reunite after everything you've been through, William remarked. Uncle William, now that we're all together, nothing will separate us again, right? Tommy asked hopefully. William glanced at Sarah before answering. Tommy, that's a decision your mother and Nathan need to make together. But I can say there's no danger threatening you anymore, William said diplomatically. Nathan turned to Sarah with a serious expression. Mom, can I stay here in Bridgeport? Can I live with you? Nathan asked directly. Sarah was moved by her eldest son's request. Nathan, of course you can. It's always been my dream to have both of you with me again, Sarah replied, hugging both her sons. Tommy could hardly believe what he was hearing. After years of thinking he was alone in the world, he now had not only his mother back but also an older brother. Really, Nathan? You're going to live here with us? Tommy asked to confirm. Really, little brother? If you'll have me, Nathan said with a smile. Of course we will, Tommy exclaimed, jumping into Nathan's lap. Martha discreetly wiped away a tear, moved to see the family finally reunited. Sarah, now you'll need a bigger apartment, Martha observed practically. You're right. We'll have to look for a place with 2 bedrooms, Sarah agreed. Actually, I have a suggestion, Nathan said timidly. I can work to help with expenses. In another town, I already worked part-time. I can do the same here." Tommy looked at his brother with admiration. Nathan wasn't just older, but also responsible and mature. "Nathan, you don't have to work." "You're still in school," Sarah said. "Mom, I want to help. I want to do my part to keep our family together," Nathan insisted. William, who had been watching the family dynamic, had an idea. "Nathan, how about I help you get a part-time job at the town hall? Nothing too heavy, just a few hours after school," William offered. "That would be great." "Thank you, Uncle William," Nathan said enthusiastically. Tommy smiled, seeing how his brother treated William with affection and respect, just as he himself had learned to do. That evening, Sarah, Tommy, and Nathan had dinner together for the first time in 5 years. It was a simple meal, but to them it meant so much more than food. It meant family reunited. "Mommy, can we be a normal family now?" Tommy asked during dinner. "Yes, my love. A normal, happy family," Sarah replied, looking tenderly at her two sons. "Tommy, tomorrow can you show me around town? I want to see all the important places in your life," Nathan requested. "Of course. I'll take you to Mrs. Martha's bakery, to my school, to the square where it all began," Tommy listed excitedly. "The square where it all began?" Nathan asked curiously. Tommy told Nathan the whole story of how he had found William Parker, passed out, and how that event had led to reuniting with his mother and indirectly with Nathan himself. "Tommy, you're a hero," Nathan said with genuine pride. "I'm no hero, I just did what I thought was right," Tommy replied modestly. "That's exactly what makes someone a hero, little brother," Nathan said, ruffling Tommy's hair affectionately. The next day, Tommy kept his promise and took Nathan to see all the important places in his life. They started at Martha's bakery. "Mrs. Martha, this is my brother Nathan," Tommy introduced proudly. "Nathan, what a pleasure to meet you." "Tommy hasn't stopped talking about you since he found out you existed," Martha said warmly. "The pleasure is mine, Mrs. Martha. Tommy told me how you looked after him. Our family will always be grateful for that," Nathan replied politely. Martha was moved by Nathan's words. "Nathan, Tommy brought as much joy to my life as I did to his. We're family now," Martha said. After the bakery, Tommy took Nathan to his school. Along the way, Tommy pointed out important landmarks from his journey. "That's where I used to sleep when I was living on the streets," Tommy said, pointing to a stairwell. Nathan stopped walking and looked at the spot with sadness. "Tommy, I'm so sorry you went through that alone. If I had known," Nathan began. "Nathan, don't be sad. Everything that happened led me to where I am today. If it hadn't happened this way, maybe we never would have found each other again," Tommy comforted wisely. Nathan smiled, impressed by his younger brother's emotional maturity. "You're amazing, Tommy. Much stronger than I was at your age," Nathan said. "You think so?" Tommy asked, always craving validation from important figures in his life. "I'm sure of it. And now, you'll never have to face anything hard alone again. I'll be here to protect you," Nathan promised. Tommy felt a new and comforting sensation. For the first time in his life, he had an older brother to look after him. At school, Tommy introduced Nathan to his teachers and classmates. Everyone was struck by the brothers' physical resemblance and the affectionate way they interacted. "Tommy, your brother seems really cool," commented Jimmy, the boy Tommy had taught to read at the bakery. "He is, Jimmy, and he promised to help me teach you math too," Tommy said, already making plans for how Nathan could fit into his life. Nathan laughed at Tommy's spontaneity in volunteering him for activities. "Of course, little brother. It'll be a pleasure to help your friends," Nathan agreed. In the afternoon, they visited Central Square, where the whole adventure had begun. "This is where I found William Parker passed out," Tommy explained, pointing to the bench where it all happened. Nathan studied the spot with interest, trying to picture his little brother having the courage to help a stranger. "Tommy, what went through your mind at that moment? Weren't you scared?" Nathan asked. "I was, but I remembered what Sister Grace taught me at the shelter about helping people, and I thought if it were me lying there, I'd want someone to help me," Tommy answered honestly. Nathan felt a surge of pride for his younger brother's character. "Tommy, you have such a good heart. Never change that," Nathan said emotionally. That night, the brothers shared Tommy's room for the first time. It was cramped, but to them it meant finally being together. "Nathan, can I ask you something?" Tommy said in the dark after the lights went out. "Of course, little brother." "Did you feel angry at Mom for sending you away?" Tommy asked vulnerably. Nathan stayed silent for a few minutes before answering. "At first, yes. I didn't understand why she was sending me away. I thought she didn't love me anymore," Nathan admitted honestly. "And now?" Tommy wanted to know. "Now I understand she did what she thought was best at the time. And look, if it hadn't happened that way, maybe our family wouldn't have reunited in this special way," Nathan reflected. Tommy absorbed the wisdom in his brother's words. "Nathan, do you think we can be a normal family now?" Tommy asked. "Tommy, I don't know what a normal family is, but I know we'll be a family that loves and protects each other. And to me, that's better than normal," Nathan answered affectionately. The next morning, Sarah woke both boys with a special breakfast she had prepared. "Boys, today is the first day of our new life together," Sarah announced happily. "Mom, thank you for bringing Nathan back," Tommy said, hugging his mother. "Tommy, thank you for giving me a reason to come home," Nathan said, joining the embrace. Sarah cried with happiness, finally having both her sons in her arms again. Over the following weeks, Nathan quickly adjusted to life in Bridgeport. He enrolled in a technical school, got the part-time job at City Hall that William had offered, and became a constant presence in Tommy's life. "Nathan, do you like living here?" Tommy asked one afternoon while they did homework together. "I really do, Tommy. You know why? Because here I have you and Mom. A house is only good when it has family inside," Nathan replied. Tommy smiled, feeling safer and more loved than he ever had in his life. Martha also adjusted to having Nathan as part of the extended family. She cooked for him, gave advice about work and school, and treated him with the same maternal warmth she showed Tommy. "Mrs. Anderson, you don't have to make lunch for me every day," Nathan said during one of their meals at the bakery. "Nathan, you're Tommy's brother. That makes you my grandson too. And grandmothers take care of their grandchildren," Martha replied warmly. Nathan smiled, realizing he had found in Martha the grandmother figure he'd never had. William also developed a close relationship with Nathan, mentoring him at work and advising him on balancing school and responsibilities. "Uncle William, thank you for giving me this job opportunity," Nathan said during one of his shifts at City Hall. "Nathan, you're doing great. You're responsible, hard-working, and honest, traits you learned at home," William praised. "I learned mostly by watching Tommy. He may be younger, but he has a lot to teach about character," Nathan said admiringly. 2 months after Nathan's arrival, the family faced their first challenge as a reunited unit. Sarah lost her job due to budget cuts at the newspaper where she worked. "Boys, I need to tell you something," Sarah said at dinner, her expression worried. Tommy and Nathan immediately noticed the seriousness in her voice. "What is it, Mum?" Tommy asked. "I lost my job today. The newspaper is struggling financially and had to let several people go," Sarah explained sadly. Tommy's heart raced. After everything they'd been through, financial troubles were a particular source of anxiety for him. "Mum, does that mean we'll have to separate again?" Tommy asked fearfully. "No, Tommy, we'll never be separated again no matter what happens," Sarah assured him firmly. Nathan, who had remained silent, spoke up. "Mom, I can take on more work at the City Hall, and I can also look for a second job on weekends," offered Nathan. "Nathan, you're still in school. I won't let you sacrifice your studies because of our financial problems," Sarah refused. "But Mom, we're a family. Families help each other," Nathan insisted. Tommy, inspired by his brother's attitude, also wanted to contribute. "Mom, I can work at Mrs. Martha's bakery after school. I can help serve customers, clean tables, organize stock," suggested Tommy. Sarah was moved by her son's generosity, but also worried. "Boys, you're so kind, but I don't want you to work. I want you to study and be kids," she said. "Mom, helping the family doesn't make me less of a kid. It makes me more responsible," Tommy argued with wisdom beyond his years. Nathan agreed with his brother. "Tommy's right, Mom. Working and studying has taught me discipline and responsibility. And now more than ever, I want to contribute to our family," Nathan said. Sarah looked at her 2 sons with pride and gratitude. They had become exceptional. Young men despite all the hardships. "All right, but on one condition, your studies always come first. If your grades drop, we stop the jobs immediately," Sarah negotiated. "Deal," Tommy and Nathan said in unison. The next day, Martha welcomed Tommy at the bakery with an unexpected offer. "Tommy, I spoke with your mum about your situation. How about I make your help here official? I can pay you a small but fair wage for your work," Martha offered. "Mrs. Martha, you don't have to pay me. I like helping here," Tommy protested. "Tommy, work deserves payment, and besides, you can learn about business management, customer service, practical math. It'll be educational," Martha insisted. Tommy was thrilled at the prospect of his first real job. "Really? I'll have my own money?" he asked excitedly. "Yes, you will, and you can decide how to spend or save it," Martha confirmed. Tommy rushed home to share the news with his mom and Nathan. When he got to the apartment, he found them talking seriously in the living room. "Mom, Nathan, Mrs. Martha wants to give me a real job at the bakery," Tommy announced enthusiastically. "That's great, little brother," Nathan cheered. "And I have news too," Sarah said with a smile. "William got me an interview at a regional newspaper. It's not a guaranteed job, but it's an opportunity." "Really, Mom? When's the interview?" Tommy asked excitedly. "Tomorrow afternoon. I'm nervous but hopeful," Sarah admitted. Nathan stepped closer to his mom and placed a comforting hand on her shoulder. "Mom, you're an excellent journalist. They'd be lucky to have someone like you," he encouraged. "Nathan's right, Mom. You're the best journalist in the world." Tommy agreed with absolute conviction. Sarah laughed, feeling strengthened by her son's support. "With you two rooting for me, how can I not succeed?" she said optimistically. The next day, while Sarah was at her interview, Tommy worked at the bakery and Nathan was at school. It was the first time each family member was focused on their own responsibilities, yet all working for the common good. "Tommy, you're doing really well with customer service," Martha praised, watching how Tommy politely chatted with customers. "Thank you, Mrs. Martha. I like talking to people and helping them choose the best bread," Tommy replied happily. Later that afternoon, an elderly customer walked into the bakery and immediately recognized Tommy. "Aren't you the boy who helped the mayor in the square a few months ago?" the man asked. Tommy was surprised to be recognized. "I did help, sir, but he wasn't the mayor. It was William, who works at City Hall," Tommy politely corrected. "My boy, that man you saved is now the mayor of the city. William Parker was elected after the previous one was arrested for corruption," the customer explained. Tommy was stunned. William was the mayor. Why had he never mentioned it? "Are you sure, sir?" Tommy asked, still skeptical. "Absolutely. It's even in today's papers. Mayor William Parker is implementing several reforms to make the city more honest and transparent," the customer confirmed. After the customer left, Tommy grew thoughtful. If William was the mayor, it explained so much. His influence in arranging protection, his ability to get documentation quickly, his access to privileged information. When Nathan came home from school, Tommy immediately shared the discovery. "Nathan, I found out something amazing today. William Parker is the mayor of the city," Tommy said excitedly. "Really? Uncle William is the mayor?" Nathan replied, surprised. "Yes, a customer told me. He was elected after the last mayor got arrested," Tommy explained. "Tommy, this explains why he was able to help us so much. But do you know what this really means?" Nathan asked thoughtfully. "What?" Tommy wondered. "It means the man you saved became the most important person in the city. And your kindness didn't just save one life, it positively influenced the whole community," Nathan said proudly. Tommy absorbed this perspective, feeling humbled by the magnitude of his simple act's consequences. When Sarah came home that night, her face was radiant with happiness. "Boys, I got the job," Sarah announced joyfully. Tommy and Nathan rushed to hug their mother, celebrating the good news. "Mom, that's great. When do you start?" Tommy asked. "Next Monday, and boys, there's more. The pay is better than I expected. We'll be able to rent a bigger apartment," Sarah said, emotional. "Really? We'll each have our own rooms?" Tommy asked excitedly. "Yes, you'll each have your own space, but we'll still live together," Sarah confirmed. That night at dinner, Tommy told Sarah about discovering William was the mayor. "Mum, why did William never tell us he was the mayor?" Tommy asked curiously. Sarah thought for a moment before answering. "Tommy, I think William wanted you to like him for who he is, not for his position. Good men don't use power to impress people, she wisely explained. That makes sense. He always treated us like friends, not like we were less important, Tommy reflected. Exactly. And that says a lot about his character, Sarah agreed. Nathan, who had only known William as a friendly father figure, was also impressed by the revelation. Mum, now I understand why Uncle William always knew exactly how to help us. He really had the power to make things happen, Nathan said. That weekend, William made one of his regular visits to the family. Tommy could barely contain his curiosity about the revelation. Mayor William, Tommy began hesitantly. William laughed at Tommy's sudden formality. Tommy, I'm the same William as always. Nothing's changed between us, he said warmly. But why didn't you ever tell us you were the mayor? Tommy asked directly. William sat beside Tommy, his expression serious but kind. Tommy, when I first met you, you were a boy who had been through many hardships and learned to distrust adults, especially those in power. If I had introduced myself as the mayor from the start, you would have seen me as a distant and intimidating figure, not as a friend, explained William. Tommy reflected on this explanation and realized William was right. And besides, Tommy, I wanted you and your family to trust me for who I am, not for the position I hold. Positions are temporary, but true friendships last forever. William continued. Thank you for treating us like normal people, even though you're so important, Tommy said sincerely. Tommy, you are normal people, and you're special precisely because of that, because you're authentic, honest, and generous without needing titles or positions to be valued, William replied, moved. Sarah, who had witnessed the entire conversation, smiled proudly. William, you're an example to my children of how to use power responsibly and humbly, Sarah said gratefully. Sarah, your children are examples to me of how to keep kindness and hope alive, even in the face of adversity, William responded. 2 weeks later, the family moved into a larger apartment in a better part of town. Tommy finally had his own room. Nathan did too, and Sarah was able to set up a workspace at home. Tommy, how are you feeling in your new home? Martha asked during one of their chats at the bakery. It's strange, Mrs. Anderson. Good, but strange. I never thought I'd have a room all to myself, Tommy admitted. And how's it going with Nathan? Martha asked. It's the best thing that's ever happened to me. Having an older brother it's like having a protector and a best friend. All at once, Tommy said, his eyes shining. And your mom, how is she adjusting to her new job? Martha continued. She's really happy. She talks about work with so much excitement. I think she missed being a journalist, Tommy observed insightfully. Martha smiled, proud of Tommy's emotional maturity. Tommy, do you realize how much your life has changed these past few months? Martha said. I do. Sometimes I still can't believe it's real. I'm afraid I'll wake up and find out it was all a dream, Tommy confessed, vulnerable. Tommy, it wasn't a dream. You've earned all these blessings because of the good person you are, Martha assured him warmly. That afternoon, Tommy came home and found Nathan studying at the living room table. He sat beside his brother to do his own homework. Nathan, can I ask you something? Tommy said after a few minutes. Of course, little brother. Are you happy here? Don't you miss your old life? Tommy asked uncertainly. Nathan stopped writing and looked directly at Tommy. Tommy, let me tell you something. For the last 5 years, I lived a comfortable life with our aunt. I had everything I needed materially, but do you know what was missing? Nathan said. What? Tommy asked, curious. A real family, real love, a real purpose. I found all of that here, with you and Mom, Nathan answered sincerely. Even with all the struggles? Even knowing there might be times when money is tight, when we'll face problems, Tommy pressed. Especially because of that, Tommy. Because when we face hardships together, we grow stronger as a family. And when we celebrate victories together, they're so much sweeter, Nathan explained wisely. Tommy smiled, reassured by his brother's words. Nathan, thank you for coming home, Tommy said, moved. Thank you for giving me a home to come back to, little brother, Nathan replied, ruffling Tommy's hair affectionately. Several months passed, and the family settled into a happy, stable routine. Tommy continued working at Martha's bakery after school. Nathan balanced his studies and work at the city hall, and Sarah thrived in her new journalism job. One afternoon, William visited the family with an unexpected proposal. "Tommy, I have something to tell you," William said with a mysterious smile. "What is it?" Tommy asked curiously. "The city is organizing a special ceremony to honor citizens who've made a difference in the community. And you'll be one of them," William announced. Tommy was surprised and a little uncomfortable with the idea. "But William, I only helped one person. I didn't do anything special," he protested modestly. "Tommy, you saved my life and indirectly you allowed me to keep working to improve our city. Plus, your story has inspired so many people to be kinder and more helpful," William explained. Sarah and Nathan watched the conversation with visible pride. "My son is going to be officially honored by the city," Sarah said emotionally. "That's amazing, little brother. You deserve all the recognition," Nathan cheered. Tommy still seemed hesitant about the ceremony. "William, will there be a lot of people? I don't really like crowds," he admitted honestly. "It'll be a small, intimate ceremony, Tommy. Just local officials, your family, Martha, and a few others who were inspired by your story," William assured him. "And do I have to give a speech?" Tommy asked worriedly. "Only if you want to. Nothing is mandatory," William reassured him. After thinking for a few minutes, Tommy agreed to participate in the ceremony. "All right, but I want Nathan and Mom with me the whole time," he insisted. "Of course we will be," Nathan said immediately. "Always, sweetheart," Sarah agreed. The ceremony was scheduled for the following week, and Tommy spent the next few days alternating between nervousness and curiosity. "Mrs. Martha, do you think I'll know what to say if they ask me something?" Tommy asked during one of his shifts at the bakery. "Tommy, just be yourself. Speak from the heart like you always do," Martha advised. "But what if I say the wrong thing? What if I disappoint people?" Tommy worried. "Tommy, it's impossible to disappoint anyone by being genuine. Your natural kindness is what inspires people," Martha assured him. On the day of the ceremony, Tommy woke up with butterflies in his stomach. Nathan, noticing his brother's nerves, sat on the bed beside him. "Tommy, want to know a secret?" Nathan said. "What?" Tommy asked. "I get nervous too when I have to do something important, but I've learned that nervousness just means it matters to us," Nathan explained. "How do you stop being nervous?" Tommy wanted to know. "I think about the people who love me and who'll be there supporting me, and I remind myself I don't have to be perfect, just sincere," Nathan said. Tommy took his brother's advice to heart and felt a little calmer. The ceremony was held in the City Hall's Grand Hall, elegantly decorated but still warm and welcoming. Tommy arrived with Sarah, Nathan, and Martha, all dressed in their best clothes. "Tommy, you look very handsome," William complimented as he greeted them at the entrance. "Thank you, William. I'm nervous," Tommy admitted honestly. "That's normal, but remember, you're being honored for exactly who you are. You don't have to pretend to be someone else," William reassured him. The ceremony began with William giving a speech about the importance of exemplary citizens in building a better community. Then he called Tommy to the stage. "Now, I'd like to invite Tommy Brooks Wilson to the stage, an 8-year-old boy who embodies the values we want to see in our city," William announced. Tommy walked onto the stage hand in hand with Nathan, who had insisted on accompanying him for moral support. "Tommy, would you like to say a few words?" William asked kindly. Tommy looked at the small audience, his mother smiling with tears. In her eyes, Martha waving encouragingly, some local officials and citizens he didn't know, but who looked at him with warmth and admiration. I just want to say I didn't do anything special," Tommy began shyly. "When I saw William lying in the square, I just did what I thought was right. My mom always taught me that we should help people when they need it." The audience smiled, touched by Tommy's simplicity and sincerity. "And I want to thank everyone who helped me when I needed it," Tommy continued, gaining confidence. "Mrs. Martha, who gave me food and kindness, William, who helped me find my mom, Nathan, my brother, who came back home, and my mom, who fought so hard to return to me." Tommy paused, emotional. "I think the most important thing I've learned is that when we help others, we're really helping ourselves too. Because doing good makes you feel good inside," Tommy concluded thoughtfully. The audience applauded warmly, many with tears in their eyes. Nathan hugged Tommy proudly. and Tommy could see his mother and Martha crying with emotion. William approached Tommy with a plaque of recognition. "Tommy Brooks Wilson, in recognition of your courage, kindness, and exemplary citizenship," William read, handing the plaque to Tommy. Tommy took the plaque reverently, still not quite believing all this was happening to him. After the ceremony, several people approached Tommy to congratulate him personally. He was surprised by how many people knew his story and had been inspired by it. "Tommy, my 6-year-old grandson asked me how he can be brave like you," an elderly lady said. "And what did you tell him?" Tommy asked curiously. "I said courage isn't about not being afraid. Courage is doing the right thing even when we are afraid," the woman replied wisely. Tommy smiled, recognizing the wisdom in her words. "That's true. I was scared when I helped William, but I knew it was the right thing to do," Tommy agreed. When the family got home that night, Tommy placed the plaque in his room, next to the photo with his mother and the necklace she had given him. "Tommy, how are you feeling?" Sarah asked during dinner. "Happy, but also a little confused," Tommy admitted. "Confused why?" Nathan wanted to know. "Because I still don't really understand why people think I did something so special. To me, I just helped someone who needed it," Tommy explained. Sarah smiled, proud of her son's genuine humility. "Tommy, that's exactly what makes you special. You do good without expecting recognition or reward. You do it because kindness is in your nature," Sarah said affectionately. "And you know the best part, little brother?" Nathan added. "What?" Tommy asked. "You're inspiring other kids to be like you. Imagine how many people will be helped because you showed it's important to do the right thing," Nathan said proudly. Tommy reflected on that perspective, beginning to understand the broader impact of his actions. "Then maybe it was worth being nervous at the ceremony," Tommy said with a smile. That night, before bed, Tommy wrote in a journal he'd received, "As a gift from Martha. Today I got an award for helping William in the square. I still think it's strange to be called a hero because to me, I just did what I thought was right." But Nathan explained that sometimes we do important things without realizing it. "I'm really happy with my life now. I have my mother back. I have an amazing brother. I have Mrs. Martha as a grandmother. And I have William as a special uncle. I have a home, a school, a job at the bakery, and friends. Sometimes I still remember when I lived on the streets, and I feel sad about that time. But I also feel grateful because if I hadn't lived on the streets, maybe I would never have been in the square that day to help William. I think I've learned that sometimes the bad things that happen to us can lead to good things if we don't give up on being a good person. Tomorrow I want to start teaching more kids to read at the bakery. If my story can inspire people, I want to use it to help more folks, because helping others is the thing I love doing most in the world." Tommy closed the diary and lay down, feeling grateful for everything that had happened in his life. A few months later, Tommy had set up a small literacy program at Martha's bakery. Every afternoon after school and work, he spent 2 hours teaching neighborhood kids in need how to read and write. "Tommy, you have a natural talent for teaching," Martha remarked, watching as Tommy patiently helped a 6-year-old girl with the alphabet. "I love teaching, Mrs. Martha. It's like planting seeds. You plant knowledge and then watch it grow," Tommy said poetically. Nathan, who often helped Tommy with the tutoring sessions, was amazed by his younger brother's patience and dedication. "Tommy, have you ever thought about becoming a teacher when you grow up?" Nathan asked during one of the lessons. "I'm not sure yet, Nathan, but I know I always want to do something that helps others," Tommy replied. "Whatever profession you choose, you'll be great at it, because you do everything with love," Nathan said proudly. One day, Sarah came home from work with interesting news. "Boys, my editor heard about Tommy's literacy program and wants to do a story on it," Sarah announced. "A story about me?" Tommy asked, surprised. "About your community project, Tommy. He thinks it could inspire other kids to start similar programs in their neighborhoods," Sarah explained. Tommy hesitated, remembering his experience with public attention during the award ceremony. "Mum, I don't know if I want to be in the newspaper again," Tommy said honestly. "Why not, little bro?" Nathan asked curiously. "Because I don't want people to think I'm doing this for attention. I do it because I really love it," Tommy explained. Sarah smiled, once again impressed by Tommy's pure intentions. "Tommy, what if the story focuses on the kids you're helping instead of you?" Sarah suggested. "That would be better. I want people to see how smart and hard-working these kids are," Tommy agreed. The article was published a few weeks later under the title "Little Teachers' Big Dreams." It highlighted how Tommy had created an informal learning space at the bakery, but mainly focused on the progress of the children in the program. "Tommy, look at this," Martha said, showing him the newspaper the morning it came out. "Your student Emma managed to read her own story in the article." Tommy was moved to see Emma, a 7-year-old girl who had arrived at the program unable to even write her own name, now reading fluently. "Mrs. Martha, this is why I love teaching. Seeing the moment they realize they can learn," Tommy said, beaming. The article had an unexpected impact. Many people in town started reaching out to Martha, offering to help expand Tommy's program. "Tommy, a retired teacher wants to volunteer to help with the lessons," Martha said excitedly. "Really? That would be amazing. We could help more kids," Tommy said enthusiastically. "And there's more. A local business owner wants to donate. School supplies and a publishing house offered children's books," continued Martha. Tommy was impressed by people's generosity. "Why do they want to help, Mrs. Anderson?" asked Tommy. "Because you showed that one person can make a difference, Tommy. And when people see it's possible to help, they want to join in too," Martha explained. That afternoon, Tommy talked with Nathan about the new opportunities for his project. "Nathan, I think the program is getting bigger than I expected," Tommy said thoughtfully. "Is that good or bad?" asked Nathan. "Good, I think, but it also makes me nervous. What if I can't coordinate everything right? What if I disappoint the people who want to help?" Tommy worried. Nathan sat beside Tommy, taking on his role as the older brother and advisor. "Tommy, remember when you asked me how to stop being nervous?" Nathan said. "I do. I gave you advice, but I forgot to mention the most important part," Nathan continued. "What part?" Tommy wanted to know. "When something gets bigger than we can handle alone, we ask for help. And you have plenty of people willing to help. Me, Mom, Mrs. Anderson, William, and now these new volunteers," Nathan wisely said. Tommy smiled, feeling relieved. "So I don't have to do everything alone?" he asked. "Never. Teamwork is always better than working alone. And you've already proven you can inspire people to work together for a good cause," Nathan assured him. Over the weekend, Tommy, Nathan, and Sarah met with Martha, William, and the new volunteers to plan the expansion of the literacy program. "Tommy, we want you to keep leading the project," said the retired teacher, Mrs. Anderson. "But we'll help with the teaching and administrative side. And I can help with legal and bureaucratic matters," William offered. "The bakery can still be our base, but we can use the church hall on Saturdays for bigger activities," suggested the local parish priest, who had also volunteered. Tommy looked around the table, seeing all these important adults seriously discussing his little project, and felt a mix of pride and responsibility. "I'll keep coordinating, but on one condition," Tommy said after a moment. "What condition?" William asked curiously. "I want the kids to be part of the decisions too. They know better than anyone what they need to learn," Tommy said shrewdly. All the adults smiled, impressed by Tommy's insight. "Excellent idea, Tommy. Participatory democracy from an early age," praised Mrs. Anderson. "Should we create a student council?" Nathan suggested excitedly. "Yes, and we'll vote on the activities we want to do," Tommy agreed enthusiastically. Sarah watched the whole discussion with tears of pride in her eyes. Her 8-year-old son was leading a social initiative that would involve dozens of people. "Tommy, are you sure you want this responsibility?" Sarah asked tenderly. "Yes, Mom, because it's not just my responsibility, it's ours," Tommy replied, gesturing to include everyone present. 3 months later, the literacy program had grown exponentially. 40 children regularly participated in activities. 12 adult volunteers contributed different skills, and the project had become a model for other communities in the region. "Tommy, the state governor wants to see our project," William announced during one of the weekly meetings. "The governor? Why?" Tommy asked, surprised. "Because our community education model is getting attention. Other towns want to replicate what we're doing here," William explained. Tommy grew thoughtful for a few minutes. "William, the governor might come here to see our work, but I don't want this to turn into political propaganda," said Tommy with surprising seriousness for his age. "What do you mean, Tommy?" asked William, intrigued by the boy's concern. "I want him to come because he's genuinely interested in education, not because he wants a photo op with kids," Tommy explained shrewdly. William smiled, once again impressed by Tommy's political maturity. "Tommy, you're right to be cautious. I'll make it clear that the visit should be educational, not promotional," he promised. The governor's visit was scheduled for the following week, but Tommy decided not to change anything in the program's regular routine. "If he wants to see our work, he should see it as it really is, not some special version to impress him," Tommy told the volunteers. On the day of the visit, the governor arrived with a small entourage, including his Secretary of Education. Tommy greeted him politely but without excessive fuss. "Governor, welcome to our program. Would you like to see our activities?" Tommy asked simply. "Of course, Tommy. I'm very interested in seeing how you've achieved such impressive results," replied the governor, genuinely curious. Tommy led the governor around to observe the different activities, children reading in small groups, others practicing math with educational games, and a group drawing and writing their own stories. "Governor, would you like to talk to the kids? They can explain the program better than I can," Tommy offered. The governor spent the afternoon speaking with the children, listening to their experiences and observing their progress. He was particularly impressed with Emma, the girl who had arrived unable to read and was now writing short poems. "Tommy, may I ask you something?" the governor said at the end of the visit. "Of course," Tommy replied. "How did an 8-year-old manage to organize all this?" the governor asked with genuine admiration. Tommy thought carefully before answering. "I don't think it was just me, Governor. It's because so many people wanted to help, and because the kids really wanted to learn. I just connected the people who wanted to help with the ones who needed it," he explained modestly. The Secretary of Education, who had been quietly observing, stepped forward. "Tommy, you've created something here that many formal schools struggle with, an environment where children love to learn," she noted. "Why does that happen here and not in schools?" Tommy asked curiously. "Because here, you treat every child as special, respect their individual pace, and create an atmosphere of care rather than just obligation," the secretary explained. Tommy absorbed this thoughtfully. "So maybe the secret is treating people with kindness and respect," he suggested. "Exactly. It's simple, but sometimes we forget it in formal institutions," she agreed. After the visit, the governor pledged to support similar programs in other cities, always respecting local needs and community involvement. "Tommy, you've just influenced statewide education policies," William remarked after the entourage left. "How so?" Tommy asked, not fully understanding. "Your ideas about community-based education will be implemented in other cities. Hundreds of children will benefit from the model you helped create," William explained. Tommy fell silent for a few minutes, processing the magnitude of what William had said. "William, does that mean I can help kids even without meeting them in person?" Tommy asked in wonder. "Exactly. Your ideas and your example will reach places you've never been," William confirmed. "That's amazing," Tommy exclaimed. "But it also makes me feel more responsible to keep doing good work here." That night, Tommy talked to Nathan about the day's events. "Nathan, sometimes I get scared thinking about how much has happened in my life just because I helped William that day," Tommy said thoughtfully. "Why does it scare you?" Nathan asked. "Because it feels like even the smallest thing I do now could have big consequences I can't even imagine," Tommy explained. Nathan smiled, understanding his brother's philosophical concern. "Tommy, do you know what this means?" Nathan said. "What?" "It means you've learned one of life's most important lessons. Our actions always matter, even when we think they're small. And now that you know, you can use that knowledge to do even more good," Nathan wisely explained. "So it's a good kind of responsibility?" Tommy asked. "It's the best kind, the responsibility to use your talents to help others," Nathan assured him. Tommy smiled, feeling inspired rather than scared by his future possibilities. A year after the day he found William passed out in the square, Tommy woke up on a sunny Saturday morning with a strange but good feeling. It had been exactly 1 year since his life had completely changed. "Mom, Nathan, today marks a year since I found William in the square," Tommy announced at breakfast. "That's right. How do you feel, knowing everything that's happened since then?" Sarah asked. Tommy looked around the table, his smiling mother, Nathan, reading the newspaper, their cozy and safe apartment in the background, and felt a wave of gratitude. "I feel whole," Tommy said after a moment, "like all the pieces of my life are finally in the right place." "And what are those pieces?" Nathan asked, curious about his brother's reflection. "Both of you, Mrs. Anderson, William, my school, my job at the bakery, the literacy program, my friends, everything that makes my life meaningful," Tommy listed. Sarah stood up and hugged Tommy warmly. "Tommy, you know you've brought meaning to our lives too, right?" Sarah said emotionally. "How so, Mom?" "You've shown us what's truly important in life. You've taught us that kindness and courage are the most valuable things a person can have," Sarah explained. That afternoon, the family visited Central Square, where it all began. Tommy sat on the same bench where he had found William and closed his eyes, remembering that life-changing morning. "What are you thinking about, little brother?" Nathan asked, sitting beside him. "I'm thinking about how strange it is that life works this way," Tommy said philosophically. "How so?" "I was running to get help for William, but in the end, I was the one who received the greatest help of all. I found my family, my place in the world, my purpose," Tommy reflected. Nathan smiled, once again impressed by his younger brother's wisdom. "Tommy, I think it happens because when we help others with our whole heart, the universe conspires to help us too," Nathan said poetically. "Do you really believe that?" Tommy asked curiously. "I do, and your life is proof of it," Nathan confirmed. Sarah, who had been watching her son's conversation, walked over to them. "Boys, how about we take a picture here on the bench where it all started?" Sarah suggested. They took several photos, Tommy alone on the bench, the three of them together, Tommy and Nathan as brothers. To Tommy, those pictures weren't just memories, they were symbols of transformation and rebirth. As they were getting ready to leave, Tommy noticed an elderly woman walking slowly through the square, struggling with several heavy bags. Without hesitation, he approached her. "Mom, can I help you with those bags?" Tommy offered politely. "What a kind boy. Of course, dear, that would be a great help," the woman replied with a grateful smile. Tommy carried the woman's bags to the bus stop, chatting with her along the way. Sarah and Nathan watched the scene with proud smiles. "Some habits never change," Nathan remarked to Sarah, "and thank goodness for that. It's that natural kindness that makes Tommy so special," Sarah replied. When Tommy returned to his family, Nathan teased him. "Tommy, you never stop helping people, do you?" "Why would I stop?" Tommy asked, genuinely confused. "I don't know. Sometimes people get tired of always doing things for others," Nathan explained. Tommy thought for a few seconds before answering. "Nathan, helping others doesn't tire me. It actually gives me energy. It's like food for my soul," he said poetically. Sarah felt tears in her eyes hearing Tommy's words. "Tommy, you have the most beautiful soul I've ever known," she said emotionally. That night, Tommy wrote in his diary, "Today marks 1 year since I met William in the square. A whole year. Sometimes it feels like yesterday, other times like it was so long ago. I've been thinking a lot today about how my life has changed. It's not just that I have a family, a home, and a job now, it's that I finally understand my place in the world. I think my place is to be someone who helps others, not just by carrying bags or teaching kids to read, but by showing that it's possible to be good even when things are hard. Nathan told me that when we help others, the universe helps us too. I don't know if I believe in the universe doing things, but I do know that when I do good, I feel good about myself. And when I feel good about myself, I can do even more good. It's like a circle that never stops. Mom said I have a beautiful soul. I don't know what a beautiful soul looks like, but I hope it's true, because I want people to feel good when they're around me. Tomorrow, I'll turn 9. Nathan said he'll teach me to ride a bike as my birthday gift. I've never ridden a bike before. I'm so happy with my life now, but the most important thing is that I'm happy with who I am, and I think that's what really matters." Tommy closed the diary, carefully placed it in his desk drawer, and lay down to sleep, with a smile on his face. The next morning, Tommy woke up to Nathan singing "Happy Birthday" by his bed, holding a small cake Sarah had made in the kitchen. "Happy birthday, little bro, 9 years old," Nathan cheered. "Thank you, Nathan. Thank you, Mom," Tommy said, hugging them both. "Tommy, this is going to be your best birthday yet," Sarah promised, kissing his forehead. "It already is, Mom, because it's the first one I get to celebrate with both of you," Tommy replied, touched. After breakfast, the family headed to Martha's bakery, where a small surprise party awaited them. Martha had decorated the bakery with balloons and banners, and several children from the literacy program were there with handmade gifts. "Tommy, happy birthday," they all shouted in unison as he walked in. Tommy was moved to see his students had prepared a party for him. "You did all this for me?" he asked in disbelief. "Of course. You always do special things for us." Emma, the girl who had learned to read in the program, replied. William was also there, holding a special gift. "Tommy, happy birthday. This is from the whole city," he said, handing Tommy a package. Tommy carefully opened it and found a brand new red bike just his size. "A bike?" exclaimed Tommy, amazed. "It's beautiful. Now I can teach you how to ride in," said Nathan excitedly. "And you can visit more kids in different neighborhoods to expand the program," suggested William. Tommy hugged the bicycle as if it were a dear friend. "Thank you, William. Thank you, everyone. This is the most beautiful bike in the world," said Tommy, beaming with happiness. The party continued with games, music, and plenty of food that Martha had prepared especially for the occasion. Tommy had more fun than ever, surrounded by all the people he loved. That afternoon, while the kids played in the small yard behind the bakery, Tommy sat down next to Martha. "Mrs. Martha, can I ask you something?" said Tommy. "Of course, dear, always." "Do you ever regret taking me in that first day?" asked Tommy, his voice vulnerable. Martha was surprised by the question. "Tommy, why would you ask?" "Such a thing," said Martha, "because sometimes I must be a handful, worrying you, testing your patience when I'm upset," Tommy explained hesitantly. Martha placed a gentle hand on Tommy's face. "Tommy Brooks Wilson, listen carefully to what I'm about to say," she said firmly. "Meeting you was the greatest blessing of my life. You brought joy, purpose, and love to a woman who felt alone and useless." "Really?" asked Tommy, his eyes shining. "As real as it gets. You gave me the chance to be both a mother and a grandmother. You let me see the world through the eyes of a special child. You gave me the chance to be part of something much bigger than myself," Martha said, moved. Tommy hugged Martha tightly. "Thank you for loving me, Mrs. Martha. Thank you for teaching me so many important things," he whispered. "Thank you for letting me be part of your journey, my dear grandson of the heart," Martha replied, discreetly wiping away a tear. As the party wound down and guests began to leave, Tommy climbed onto a chair to address everyone. "Everyone, I want to say something," he announced. All eyes turned to him. "Today I turned 9, but I feel like my real life began exactly a year ago, when I met all of you. Mom, Nathan, Mrs. Martha, William, all the kids in the program, all the volunteers. You're my chosen family," Tommy said emotionally. "And you're our chosen inspiration," Emma shouted spontaneously, making everyone laugh and applaud. "I want to make you a promise," Tommy continued seriously. "I promise I'll always try to be a good person, always help those in need, and always remember that small actions can have big consequences. And we promise to always be here to support you," Nathan said on behalf of everyone. Tommy stepped down and was embraced by everyone present, feeling more loved and valued than he ever thought possible. That night, after everyone had left, and the family had returned home, Tommy, Sarah, and Nathan sat on the couch to talk about the day. "Tommy, how was your first birthday with family?" asked Sarah. "It was perfect, Mom, absolutely perfect," Tommy replied, completely content. "And how do you feel now that you're 9? Nathan wanted to know. "I feel responsible," Tommy said thoughtfully. "Responsible for what?" Sarah asked curiously. "For making the most of every opportunity I have now, for not letting down the people who believe in me, for keeping doing good things in the world," Tommy explained with maturity. Nathan smiled proudly at his brother. "Tommy, you know you don't have to carry the world on your shoulders, right? "You're still a kid, you can still play and have fun," he said affectionately. "I know, Nathan. And I do play and have lots of fun. But I also like having important responsibilities. It makes me feel useful," replied Tommy. Sarah hugged both her sons. "You two are the best sons a mother could ask for. Tommy, with your natural kindness and wisdom beyond your years. Nathan, with your maturity and brotherly protection." "I'm so lucky," said Sarah emotionally. "We're the lucky ones to have you." "As our mum," said Nathan. "And to have each other," added Tommy. That night, Tommy took longer than usual to fall asleep. Not from anxiety or worry, but because he wanted to savor every moment of happiness he was living. Lying in his comfortable bed, in his own room, in the home he shared with his mother and brother, Tommy reflected on the incredible journey he had lived over the past year. From an orphaned boy living on the streets, he had become a young man recognized by his community, a leader of a social project, a dedicated student, and above all, a beloved son and brother. But what amazed him most wasn't the external changes in his life. It was how he had discovered who he truly was inside, a person who found purpose and joy in helping others. "Maybe that's my superpower," Tommy thought before drifting off. Not flying or turning invisible, but making other people feel important and cared for. With that comforting thought, Tommy fell asleep smiling, surrounded by his family's love and the certainty that no matter what the future held, he would face it with courage, kindness, and the company of those he loved. The next day, Tommy woke up early, and instead of lazing in bed like many kids do on weekends, he got up with energy and purpose. There were children to teach, a new bike to learn to ride, a family to love, and a world full of possibilities to explore. And so Tommy Brooks Wilson, the boy who saved a mayor and discovered that saving people was his calling in life, began another day of his new life, a life filled with love, purpose, and endless opportunities to do good. The end. Now tell us what you thought of the story and where you're watching from. If you have anything to share with us, leave your honest thoughts in the comments. Do you think Tommy made all the right decisions along his journey? We'd love to hear your opinion. Thank you so much for joining us. Don't forget to like and, most importantly, subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other heartwarming stories like this one.